Chapter 521. Flame Organization bathed in blood. Halfway through, Yi Li saw Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue. Suddenly he detected the aura of dark race members. Sister Qian, why are you taking me to the warrior alliance? Lu Qingxue looked at Chen Ruxue in confusion. Chen Ruxue sighed, her fair face slightly sad. Qingxue, you will know when you reach the warrior alliance. Your sister is also in the warrior alliance. Chen Ruxue said. Lu Qingxue's sister was naturally Lu Qian. When she was in the Huangjiang Academy in the Huangjiang base city, Yi Li took Lu Qingxue away and asked Chen Ruxue to bring her to the warrior alliance. The two didn't meet until Lu Qian entered the Cloud Peak Academy. Hee, the two of you have interacted with the Demon King Yi Li, right? A cold voice entered Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue's ears. As soon as he said so, two Tier 8 dark race members appeared in front of the two women. Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue were shocked. They didn't expect the dark race members to appear here. The two girls looked at the two dark race members. The auras of these two dark race members were extremely powerful, not something they could defeat. What do you want? Chen Ruxue stared at the two Tier 8 dark race members. To take you back, of course. A Tier 8 dark race member sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, the two Tier 8 dark race members were about to attack. Two shocking golden spiritual light attacks pierced through the two Tier 8 dark race members. At this moment, Li Yanlu came to Yi Li's side. She saw two golden spiritual light attacks bursting out of Yi Li's fingers and piercing through two level 8 dark race members. Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue were both stunned, and Yi Li appeared in front of them. Yi Li secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately he arrived in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Senior. Lu Qingxue called Yi Li. Yi Li nodded and then asked Li Yanlu to take them to the warrior alliance. He was going to cultivate. After escaping from the Dark Temple, Yi Li felt that he was seriously lacking in strength. He would release the Apocalypse Legion first and let them gather the zombies. The strength of the Apocalypse Legion was seriously insufficient too. Then Yi Li found a relatively hidden place, entered the ancient dragon abyss sword, and began to cultivate on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Tower. In the void world on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Tower, he crazily absorbed the magnificent experience. The flow of time on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Tower was too fast. Wasteland Zone, Flame Organization. Luo Yu held her chin with her snow-white hand, looking a little sad. Sister, what's wrong? Luo Li looked at Luo Yu curiously. Liar, I'm fine. Luo Yu stroked Luo Li's head and said. Then who was Luo Yu? It was none other than Yi Li's first disciple. When Luo Yu took Yi Li as her master, Yi Li asked Luo Yu to cut his head with a knife. At first Luo Yu didn't dare. She still remembered what Yi Li said to her. You are just a piece of trash, a complete piece of trash. How can a piece of trash like you deserve to be my disciple? She gritted her teeth and said that she was not trash. Under Yi Li's continued provocation, she slashed at Yi Li's head with the knife in her hand. However, the knife in her hand made a sound of steel colliding with Yi Li's head. She hadn't seen Yi Li for more than 2 years. Ali. Suddenly, countless screams came from outside the Flame Organization. Luo Yu was shocked. She hurriedly got up and went out, only to find that the entire Flame Organization had turned into a river of blood. 10 Tier 9 Dark Race members appeared in front of her. Chapter 522. Something big happened. Well? Luo Yu's eyes turned red because in this short moment the entire Flame Organization was destroyed. And the culprit of all this was the 10 Tier 9 Dark Race members in front of him. At this moment Luo Li also came out. Luo Li was only 10 years old. Looking at the miserable scene in front of her, she cried sadly. I'll fight you to the death. Luo Yu knew that she couldn't survive, so she rushed towards the 10 Tier 9 Dark Race members. But to Luo Yu's surprise, these Dark Race members had no intention of killing her. Instead, they knocked her and Luo Li out and left the Flame Organization. East of the Wasteland Zone, the Sky Eagle Organization was destroyed too. Several powerful Dark Race members took away 2 women, one named Ziqiong and the other named Ling Fei. Ziqiong was someone Yi Li met in the abandoned city in the wilderness. As for Ling Fei, she was the captain of the guards of the Sky Eagle base and had some interactions with Yi Li. It seemed that the Dark Temple had put in a lot of effort to let Yi Li come to the Dark Temple again. Yi Li had been cultivating on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Tower. In a month he had become a Tier 8 Transcender. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to randomly draw a prize. Would you like to use it? The system's voice sounded in Yi Li's mind. Yes, Yi Li replied without hesitation. The virtual pointer began to spin rapidly in the roulette wheel, and a few seconds later the pointer stopped. Congratulations to the host for drawing the Earth-level skill Heaven Shaking Sword Technique. Heaven Shaking Sword Technique, an Earth-level skill. After upgrading to the Heaven grade, it can break the sky. Yili thought that he finally had a sword technique. Not bad. Host, do you practice the Heaven Shaking Sword Technique? Yes. Cultivation of the Heaven Shaking Sword Technique begins 10%, 30%, 60%, 100%. I've successfully cultivated the Heaven Shaking Sword Technique. Yili thought that he had been in the Heavenly Tower for a month. He wondered how it was outside. Then Yili came out of the ancient dragon abyss sword. However, what Yili didn't know was that the various jurisdictions of the Northern Realms Martial City were already in an uproar. In the past month, the Dark Temple had been sending messages to Demon King Yili. They said that Demon King Yili's women in the Wasteland Zone were already in their hands, so they asked Demon King Yili to come to the Dark Temple to pick them up personally. The leader of the Warrior Alliance, Xiahou Jie, was furious. He scolded the Dark Temple for only using women. Countless genetic warriors, armies and heavy weapons had gathered in the Martial City. Why couldn't the Dark Temple destroy the Warrior Alliance? It was because they had tens of millions of soldiers and countless heavy weapons. Xiahou Jie had already told the Dark Temple that if the Dark Temple didn't let those women go, they would attack the Death Mound Mountain. While you might have perfect plans, one had my own way to overcome obstacles. There were countless Dark Race members and zombies gathered around the Death Mound Mountain. If they fought, the best outcome would be that both parties would be injured. Yili was about to return to the Warrior Alliance when he heard the conversation between two men who were hunting. Demon King Yili hasn't appeared yet. Does he not dare to appear? I don't think he dares to appear. That's the Dark Temple. Women are nothing. He can find other women if they were dead, but if he's dead, hell really be gone. Suddenly, a young man appeared in front of two men. The young man was naturally Yili. Yili looked at the two men. Tell me everything you know. Chapter 523. Fulfill agreement. The two men were stunned and looked at the boy in front of them. Why should we tell you? A man said to Yili. Yili sneered. If you don't tell me, you will die. As soon as he finished speaking, a shocking golden spiritual attack pierced through a big tree not far away. In an instant the big tree fell. Seeing this, the two men were dumbfounded. Yes. The two men didn't dare to hide anything. They quickly told Yili everything they knew. Yili's expression turned cold when he heard that. He never expected the Dark Temple to know him so well. Luo Yu, Luo Li, Ziqiong and Ling Fei were met by Yili in the Wasteland Zone. He had only thought that the Dark Temple would attack Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue, but he didn't expect that the Dark Temple would go to the Wasteland Zone to catch them. The two men felt the terrifying aura emitted by Yili at close range and were so frightened that they fell to the ground. Yili sneered and activated the swift steps to disappear. He was on the way to the Warrior Alliance. On the way he asked the system, if one want to defeat the Dark Temple, is it possible? Because the difference in strength between the host and the Dark Temple is too great, it's obviously impossible. However, there's a way. What way? Yili hurriedly asked. In his opinion, as long as there was a way to defeat the Dark Temple, he would do anything. As long as the Apocalypse Legion is fused into the host's body. But this will consume the host's body greatly. The host may fall into a deep slumber. After the Apocalypse Legion is fused into the host's body, the host can synthesize and use all the heaven-grade skills of the Apocalypse Legion, and the host can also take it out on your own. Upon hearing this, Yili smiled indifferently. It was just falling into a deep slumber. As long as he could defeat the Dark Temple, this was nothing. Then he arrived outside the headquarters of the Warrior Alliance. The Warrior Alliance was located in the Martial City, and everyone in the Martial City was already panicking. Countless genetic warriors and tens of millions of soldiers were gathered around the Martial City. A shocking battle would break out at any time. Li Yanlu looked at the young man walking over, her fair face stunned. Lord Demon King? That day she went to the Heavenly Star Academy with Yili to find Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue, and then Yili asked her to bring Chen Ruxue and Lu Qingxue back. Then something like that happened. She thought that Yili had left the Northern Realm, but she didn't expect Yili to appear in front of her at this time. Li Yanlu hurriedly ran into the hall of the Warrior Alliance. Alliance leader, Master Demon King is back. Hearing this, Xiahou Jie couldn't sit still anymore. He quickly got up and walked out of the hall. Sure enough, Yili came into his sight. Lord Demon King, you're finally back. These days, before Xiahou Jie finished speaking, Yili interrupted him. I already know everything. Let's go in and talk. Then Yili walked into the hall. After everyone sat down, Yili looked at Xiahou Jie. I'm here in the Warrior Alliance to fulfill the agreement with you. As soon as he said this, everyone in the hall of the Warrior Alliance was shocked. Agreement? It was naturally about Xiahou Jie and Yili cooperating to deal with the Dark Temple. Chapter 524. Went to the Dark Temple again. Xiahou Jie looked at Yili. Master Demon King, but now. Yili waved his hand, indicating Xiahou Jie not to continue. They'll go to the Dark Temple in person like last time. Take your people to the foot of the Death Mountain. As soon as those women come out, start attacking Death Mountain. Yili slowly said. Everyone in the hall looked at each other in bewilderment. They looked at Xiahou Jie to see what he would say. Lord Demon King, if you enter the Dark Temple alone, what if? Xiahou Jie didn't finish. He looked at Yili tentatively. Yili naturally understood what Xiahou Jie meant. He said indifferently, you can always choose to believe me, Yili, because I, Yili, will never disappoint anyone. Deal? Xiahou Jie's tone became extremely firm. Destroying the dark race in the Northern Realm was his lifelong wish. If he missed it this time, he might never have a chance again. Master Demon King, may I ask when it will begin? Yili pondered for a few seconds and then said, in 3 days. On this day, Xiahou Jie hurriedly held a press conference and asked the reporters to release a piece of news. The news read as follows. The Demon King Yili would go to the Dark Temple in 3 days. At that time, the warriors and the army of the Warrior Alliance would work together to attack the Dark Temple. Besides, this shocking battle would be broadcasted throughout the Northern Realm. He hoped that the forces in the Northern Realm could come to support him and wipe out the Dark Temple, the supreme force of the Dark Race in the Northern Realm. Yili didn't expect Xiahou Jie to have such an awareness in the post-apocalyptic world where lives were as insignificant as weeds. When people from all over the Northern Realm heard this news, many people came to the martial city one after another. The Dark Temple also began to mobilize their soldiers and generals. The Dark Race members and zombies in all areas of the Northern Realm also began to come to the Death Mountain. 3 days later, Yili slowly walked out of the Warrior Alliance. Xiahou Jie had already informed the entire army yesterday to be prepared. This battle concerned the fate of the Northern Realm. Either the Dark Temple or the Warrior Alliance would survive. There would only be one winner. If the system hadn't told Yili that he could fuse with the Apocalypse Legion into his body, he wouldn't have let Xiahou Jie do this. Then Yili activated the swift steps and walked towards the Dark Temple. Death Mountain. At this moment, the surroundings of the Death Mountain were full of Dark Race members and zombies. There was no telling how many of them there were. In short, Yili had never seen such Dark Race members and zombies. Xiahou Jie had already led countless genetic warriors and armies towards the Death Mountain. He arrived at the gate of the Dark Temple. A 10th-tier master-level general of the Dark Temple was already waiting for him outside. Seeing this, the 10th-tier master-level general sneered. Demon King Yili, you finally appeared. Yili didn't say anything and slowly walked towards the hall. After arriving at the hall, Yili looked at the 3 temple masters indifferently. Has your Dark Temple always been so despicable? Ha ha ha. The head temple master laughed. Demon Lord Yili, I never expected you to be so naive. In this world, actions are judged by their outcomes, regardless of whether they are noble or base. Yili sneered and stared at the head temple master of the Dark Temple. You caught them because you wanted me to come here. Now that you've achieved your goal, you can let them go. Yili said coldly. Chapter 525. Guess they'll listen to you or not, the head temple master sneered and shook his head. No, Demon King Yili, what if you run away again if you let them go? Yili smiled indifferently. Your dark race has always claimed to be the noblest race in the world. Unfortunately, you are all so afraid of me. How sad. The head temple master's expression turned cold when he heard this. He stared at Yili B0X. Calm, Demon King Yili, do you think the Dark Temple is afraid of you? Isn't that so? It's understandable that you used women to lure me here, but now that I've come to the Dark Temple, you're still afraid. Aren't you afraid of me? A disdainful smile appeared on Yili's handsome face. In the hall of the Dark Race, all the generals were furious when they saw Yili's smile. They had an unparalleled noble bloodline. Demon King Yili, do you know that provocation strategy won't work on me? The head temple master stared at Yili and said, Of course I know that. But, as a Tier 3 Lord-level Dark Race member, you're afraid of a mere Tier 8 Transcender like me. What can I do? Upon hearing this, the head temple master gritted his teeth. Since he was born, he had never been underestimated. Furthermore, the person who underestimated him this time was not only weaker than him, but also a human. How could he bear it? Head Temple Master, the Warrior Alliance and the army are getting closer and closer to Death Mound Mountain. At this moment, a 10th tier Master level general said to the Head Temple Master. The Head Temple Master smiled. These stupid humans always think they can destroy the Dark Temple. What a joke. Demon King Yi Li, after my repeated consideration, I can let them go. The Dark Temple is never afraid of any human. As soon as he finished speaking, the Head Temple Master asked someone to bring the women over. Soon Luo Yu, Luo Li, Ziqiong and Ling Fei all appeared in front of Yi Li. Senior. The four women didn't expect to see Yi Li at this moment. Before coming to the alliance, Yi Li had already told Li Yanlu to pick up the four women. Go down the mountain first. Someone will pick you up. Yi Li said to the four women. Immediately Luo Yu, Luo Li, Ziqiong and Ling Fei walked out of the Dark Temple. Demon King Yi Li, now that your woman has been rescued, shouldn't you join the Dark Temple and receive the baptism of the God of Darkness? The Head Temple Master looked at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. Okay. As soon as he said this, everyone in the hall was stunned. They never expected Yi Li to agree so quickly. Demon King Yi Li, is what you said true? The Head Temple Master looked at Yi Li in surprise. Of course it's fake. Yi Li slowly said. Silence, a deathly silence. All the generals in the hall of the Dark Temple were stunned. They didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Demon King Yi Li, do you really think I dare not kill you? The Head Temple Master glared at Yi Li and shouted angrily. You can try. Yi Li also stared at the Head Temple Master. Take Yi Li to the dark pool. The Head Temple Master roared. Immediately, a 10th tier Master level general began to take Yi Li to the dark pool. Not long after, Yi Li came to the dark pool. Demon King Yi Li, go down, the 10th tier Master level general said coldly. Guess I'll listen to you or not? Yi Li looked at the 10th tier Master level general indifferently. Chapter 526. Fight the Head Temple Master. The 10th tier Master level Dark General was a little stunned. Demon King Yi Li, it seems that you want me to take action? The 10th tier Master level Dark General said angrily. Hee, do you think an idiot like you is worthy of fighting me? Yi Li looked at the 10th tier Master level General in disdain. Fusion begins. Yi Li fused all the 8 zombies of the Apocalypse Legion into his body. B0X. The Apocalypse Legion wasn't one with Yi Li. If Yi Li wanted them to come out of his body, they would come out of his body. In an instant, Yi Li's combat power was soaring. He had upgraded from a Tier 8 Transcender to Tier 3 Chosen One. When the 10th tier Master level General saw this scene, he couldn't help but be stunned. Just as he was about to speak to Yi Li, he saw that a terrifying sword had appeared in Yi Li's hand. This sword was naturally the ancient Dragon Abyss sword. Swish. A cold light arrived first and then the sword shot out like a dragon. A shocking scar appeared on the neck of the 10th tier Master level Dark General. He said goodbye to this world forever. Next, it'll be a massacre. Yi Li said coldly. Yi Li walked out, and the eyes of the Dark Race members widened. Could it be that the Demon King Yi Li escaped again like last time? Swish. Yi Li didn't say much to these members of the Dark Race. He melted them into nothingness with a single slash. Head Temple Master, Head Temple Master. Demon King Yi Li has escaped from the dark pool again. A 5th tier member of the Dark Race ran into the hall in fright and looked at the Head Temple Master in horror. What? All the Dark Race members in the hall were stunned when they heard this. Hurry up. Don't let the Demon King Yi Li escape. The Head Temple Master shouted coldly. As soon as he said so, countless screams came from outside the hall. The screams were really creepy. Everyone in the hall of the Dark Temple was stunned. They never expected that the Demon King Yi Li didn't choose to escape. Yi Li slowly walked into the hall. All the Dark Race members in the hall stared at Yi Li. They were all scared out of their wits. What's with this power? The 2nd Temple Master looked at Yi Li in horror. The Head Temple Master was also frightened. The aura exuding from Yi Li was even stronger than his. Everyone, are you ready to die? Yi Li's eyes flashed coldly. Demon King Yi Li, although one don't know what method you used to increase your strength so quickly, don't think you can defeat the Dark Temple, the Head Temple Master said coldly. Yi Li raised the ancient Dragon Abyss sword and slowly said word by word, Heaven-shaking sword technique. Activating the Earth-level attack skill, coupled with the enhancement of the ancient Dragon Abyss sword and the 1st level ancient Dragon Abyss sword embryo, the heaven-shaking sword technique was definitely not weaker than a heaven-grade skill. Ah! As two screams sounded, two 10th-tier master-level generals died without a burial place. Demon King Yili won. Want your life? The head temple master shouted angrily. He had wanted to turn Yili into his ultimate killing machine, but he didn't expect Yili to be so untamable. As soon as he finished speaking, the head temple master flew towards Yili, and the aura of the entire dark temple became even more evil. Boom! The head temple master threw a terrifying punch at Yili. You have a fist technique? One have some too. Demon God Domineering Fist. Yili activated the heaven-grade technique, the Demon God Domineering Fist, and collided with the terrifying punch of the head temple master. Chapter 527, Earth-Shattering Battle, Boom! In an instant, the hall of the dark temple began to shake violently. The head temple master stared at Yili. He began to regret not killing Yili from the beginning. Now that the tiger had returned to the mountain, it became extremely tricky. Yili's handsome face was terrifyingly calm. He had said something the first time he escaped from the dark temple. B0x. Calm. When the tiger returned to the mountain, half of the sky would be dyed red. Everyone, let's kill Demon King Yili together. The head temple master knew that he couldn't kill Yili no matter what. Immediately, all the members of the dark race in the hall began to besiege Yili. Yili sneered. Good job. Annihilation Finger. He activated the Annihilation Finger, and in an instant, an extremely terrifying golden spiritual light attack attacked. The heaven-grade skill, Annihilation Finger, could be said to be a super upgraded version of the One Yang Finger. It was hundreds of times stronger than the One Yang Finger. All the dark race members hurriedly dodged such an attack. Yili retreated dozens of meters and began to synthesize the skills. Among the 8 heaven-grade skills of the Apocalypse Legion, his Annihilation Finger, the Demon God Domineering Fist, and the heaven-shaking sword technique. In an instant, the spiritual energy in his hand became more and more terrifying, so terrifying that it was enough to scare people out of their wits. Retreat, the head temple master said in horror. He knew that if such an attack was launched, they would definitely be wiped out. Boom! Yili activated his attack. Such an attack was too terrifying and could no longer be described with words. In an instant, the entire dark temple was reduced to ashes. On the top of the Death Mound Mountain, shocking explosions sounded one after another. At this moment, Xiahou had already led the warrior alliance and the army to the outside of the Death Mound Mountain. Everyone saw this clearly. Alliance leader, they have come out. Li Yinlu took Luo Yu, Luo Li, Ziqiong and Ling Fei to Xiahou side. Xiahou looked at the shocking explosion on the top of the mountain and gritted his teeth. All-out attack. In an instant, countless genetic warriors and tens of millions of soldiers began to attack. The battle line was thousands of kilometers long. The planes in the sky, the tanks on the ground, and all kinds of heavy weapons. The dark race didn't want to be outdone. There were birds in the sky and beasts on the ground, and there were countless more zombies than the army. In this battle, all the major areas in the Northern Realm were broadcasting this shocking battle. The humans everywhere prayed. Of course, they hoped that the Warrior Alliance could win, because if the Warrior Alliance won, the members of the dark race in the Northern Realm would be like stray dogs. The whole scene began to become abnormally tragic. In the air above the Death Mound Mountain, seeing the Dark Temple being annihilated, the head temple master and the other members of the dark race gritted their teeth and stared at Yili. Demon King Yili, I want you to beg for death. The head temple master stared at Yili. Yili sneered. I hope you can still say such things later. Then Yili began to synthesize skills again. Seeing such an attack, the head temple master and the members of the dark race couldn't help but tremble in fear. They only had one thought at this moment, which was to escape. But their first stroke of luck doesn't guarantee a second one. Boom! As the terrifying attack was launched, all the high-leveled members of the dark race in the Dark Temple died. Splurt! At this moment, Yili vomited a mouthful of blood. Chapter 528. Awakening. Yili used the last bit of his strength to make the Apocalypse Legion come out of his body. He fell from the sky at a high speed. Fortunately, his defense was extremely strong. Otherwise he would have died. Yili didn't know what happened next. It was already a year later when he woke up. Yili opened his eyes. He was in the hospital. B0x. Come, Lord Demon King, you're awake? A doctor's voice trembled. Demon King Yili was now the hero of the entire Northern Realm. The matter of the Demon King Yili sweeping the Dark Temple with the ancient Dragon Abyss Sword was still talked about even though a year had passed. That shocking battle lasted for half a year with countless casualties, and the entire Death Mound Mountain was dyed red with blood. After the high-level Dark Race members of the Dark Temple were slaughtered by Yi Li, the Dark Race members and the zombies lost their souls. They began to collapse. However, there were too many Dark Race members and zombies. That battle was really shocking. Yi Li got up from the bed and warmed up. The doctor wanted to stop him, but on second thought this was the Demon King Yi Li, so he didn't. Lord Demon King, more than a dozen girls often come to see you, as well as the leader of the Warrior Alliance, and you seem to have a lot to say? Yi Li turned around and looked at the doctor. Hearing this, the doctor couldn't help but tremble. Master Demon King, The doctor was so frightened that he couldn't speak a complete sentence. Are you scared? Yi Li looked at the doctor. Yi Li smiled. You seem to be my attending doctor. Yes, Master Demon King. The doctor nodded. Then you've saved my life. Do you want to become a genetic warrior? The doctor couldn't help but be stunned. Yi Li bought genetic talent upgrade potions and some other upgrade potions from the Point Mall. Drink these and you can become a genetic warrior. The doctor swallowed. He took the medicine from Yi Li with trembling hands, gritted his teeth and drank it all. In an instant the doctor became a Tier 1 evolved being. The doctor began to ramble. At this moment he just wanted to cry. He really wanted to cry. He had never dreamed that he could become a genetic warrior in this life. Although there were many genetic warriors in this world, there were more ordinary people. Clang. Congratulations, host, for becoming a 10th tier transcender. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Heaven Grade skill, Sky Fiend Sword Technique. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to upgrade your skills. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 20 zombie golden pills. The system's voice sounded in Yi Li's mind. Yi Li was a little stunned. He didn't expect to obtain so many good things at once. Host, this is the sum of the things produced by the zombie treasure chest since you fell asleep 1 year ago. Hearing what the system said, Yi Li understood. No wonder he had become a 10th tier transcender from an 8th tier transcender. As a 10th tier transcender, he only needed to go one step further to become a chosen one. Without thinking too much, Yi Li upgraded his Earth level skill, the Heaven Shaking Sword Technique. Now he had 4 Heaven Grade skills. He released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. The 8 zombies were all excited to see Yi Li. Yi Li handed them 20 zombie golden pills. After swallowing them, the level of the Apocalypse Legion began to change. Chapter 529. The tree wants to be still, but the wind doesn't stop. Ada. 1st tier Lord level zombie Hongya. 1st tier Lord level zombie by Wawa. 10th tier Master level zombie Yutong. 10th tier Master level zombie Achi. 10th tier Master level zombie Bone Maiden. 9th tier Master level zombie Long Yu. 9th tier Master level zombie MOU. 9th tier Master level zombie. Ding. Congratulations to the host for upgrading the Ancient Dragon Abyss Sword Embryo to the 2nd level. At this moment, the system's voice entered Yi Li's ears again. Yi Li opened his attribute panel and took a look. B0X. Com host Yi Li. System, Super Synthesis System. Realm, 10th tier Transcender. Weapon, Ancient Dragon Abyss Sword. Skills, 2nd level of the Ancient Dragon Abyss Sword Embryo, Annihilation Finger, Demon God Domineering Fist, Sky Heaven Shaking Sword Technique, Sky Fiend Sword Technique. Now that Yi Li had 4 Heaven Grade skills, if he synthesized them, it could be imagined how terrifying they would be. Master Demon King. The doctor called Yi Li in shock. Yi Li didn't say anything else. He slowly walked out of the ward. It had been a year since he last saw the outside world. Felt good. Yi Li stretched. He looked at himself and found that he was still wearing the hospital uniform. He wanted to dress up and then return to the Warrior Alliance. Activating the Heavenly Spirit Eyes, he found a branded clothing shop and slowly walked over. Soon he arrived at the door of the shop. When he was about to go in, a sales assistant glanced at Yi Li and stood in front of him. Sorry sir, but you can't go in. Yi Li was stunned. He thought to himself, in this day and age, even if you have money you can't buy clothes? Isn't it said that customers will always be gods? Looking at the contempt in the salesperson's eyes, Yi Li instantly understood. He shook his head helplessly. Why were there always so many snobs in this world? Hee, do you know who I am? Yi Li looked at the female sales assistant in front of him indifferently. The sales assistant looked Yi Li up and down. Sir, one don't care who you are. In short, you can't enter this place. What if I'm the Demon King Yi Li? The sales assistant was shocked. She looked at Yi Li and suddenly felt that Yi Li was really similar to the Demon King Yi Li. However, she felt that the person in front of her couldn't be the Demon King Yi Li. How could a figure like the Demon King Yili appear here? Hee hee sir, you're really good at cracking jokes. The sales assistant's tone became even more contemptuous. Yili was speechless. What should he say? What's going on? Suddenly, a sharp voice entered Yili's ears. Yili followed the voice and found a young man with an extraordinary temperament walking over. What Yili didn't expect was that this boy was actually a genetic warrior, a 6th-tier evolved being. It seemed that he was a genius among geniuses. Young Master Chen, this person must break in. I told him not to go in, the female sales assistant said to the man called Young Master Chen. Hearing this, Young Master Chen looked at Yili and put on a disdainful smile. You think you can get in here? Can you afford it? As the saying went, even if the tree wanted to be still, the wind wouldn't stop. Yili just wanted to buy 1 or 2 clothes. Why did people always provoke him? They'll give you 1 second to disappear in front of me. Otherwise, the consequences will be serious. Yili slowly said. As soon as he said this, Young Master Chen and the female sales assistant were both stunned. They never expected Yili to say such a thing. Chapter 530, Lord Demon King. Young Master Chen frowned and stared at Yili. Do you know who I am? Yili smiled. 1 second is up. As soon as he said so, a golden spiritual light attacked Yili's finger. Young Master Chen was only a 6th-tier evolved being. It was impossible for him to withstand such a speed attack. B0x. Come, Ali. Without a doubt, the man named Young Master Chen screamed like a pig being slaughtered, because a shocking bloody hole appeared on his thigh. Young Master Chen? The female salesperson shouted. Seeing this, she couldn't help but be scared out of her wits. Young Master Chen was from the Li family. The Li family had a 4th general in the Warrior Alliance. Yili's handsome face didn't change at all. He looked at the man named Young Master Chen on the ground. 1 second is up again. As soon as he said so, another golden spiritual light shot into Young Master Chen's other leg. Ali! Another bone-chilling sound sounded. Hearing such a scream, the passers-by began to watch. The onlookers looked at the screaming man and were all dumbfounded. Young Master Chen? How dare this person treat Young Master Chen like this? Does he want to die? He's wearing hospital clothes. Is he crazy? The onlookers began to discuss. What exactly happened? A deep voice entered everyone's ears. They turned around and looked at the person. More than a dozen people came, all holding laser guns. These people were the guards team of Marshall City. This person beat up Young Master Chen. The female salesperson hurriedly said to the captain of the guard team. The captain of the guard team was shocked. He quickly looked at Young Master Chen, who was screaming on the ground. They couldn't afford to offend Young Master Chen. The captain looked at Yili. Then he was shocked. The captain was dumbfounded. Everyone was a little puzzled. They really couldn't understand why the captain was so afraid. Did this person have a shocking background? Thud. With a thud, the captain had already knelt in front of Yili. Master Demon King. What? Everyone gasped. Was the person in front of him the Demon King Yili? They would never have thought that it was the Demon King Yili. The female salesperson was already scared out of her wits. Just now, Yili said that he was the Demon King Yili, but she certainly didn't believe him. She didn't expect it to be true. But immediately the sales assistant knelt in front of Yili too. As for Young Master Chen, when he heard that he had just offended the Demon King Yili, a chill ran from his tailbone to the top of his head. He had already forgotten the pain and felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Demon King Yili was now the hero of the entire Northern Realm. He didn't find it strange that the captain recognized him, because someone would always recognize him. What followed was silence, dead silence. You don't have to do this. I'm just here to buy clothes. As soon as he finished speaking, Yili walked into the branded clothing shop. The sales assistant's entire body was trembling violently. She didn't know what to do at this moment. What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear the Demon King say that he wanted to buy clothes? The captain stared at the female salesperson. The female salesperson swallowed, got up shakily and walked into the shop. Chapter 531. Unparalleled woman. Yili bought a suitable set of clothes. As the saying went, clothes made the man. He looked much more handsome in it. Immediately, Yili activated the swift steps and disappeared. The female salesperson was dumbfounded. She clearly saw that the Demon King was right in front of her. How could he suddenly disappear? When Yili appeared again, he was already outside the Warrior Alliance. B0x. When the people from the Warrior Alliance saw Yili walking over slowly, they were all shocked and hurriedly rubbed their eyes, but no matter how they rubbed, they found that they didn't see it wrong at all. Master Demon King, you're awake. A sixth tier evolved being looked at Yi Li in shock. Yi Li nodded and didn't say anything else. He continued to walk in. At this moment, a genetic warrior had already run in to report. Before Yi Li walked into the hall, the alliance leader of the warrior alliance, Xiahou Jie, came out to welcome him. Master Demon King. Xiahou Jie called Yi Li. What about them? Yi Li asked. Xiahou Jie was very smart. He naturally knew what Yi Li meant. Lord Demon King, I'll take you to see them now. Then Xiahou Jie took Yi Li to a place. Not long after, Yi Li met Xiao Hui, Yin Man, Su Suner, Lu Qian, Chen Ruxue, Lu Qingxue, Luo Yu, Luo Li, Ziqiong, Ling Fei, and Li Yanlu. Senior. Xiao Hui was overjoyed to see Yi Li appear in front of her. Master. Luo Yu was also excited. In short, they were all very excited. Yi Li stayed in the warrior alliance for more than 10 days. Then he found a quiet place, entered the 7th level of the heavenly tower in the ancient dragon abyss sword, and began to cultivate. A month passed just like that. Yi Li finally became a chosen one, a tier 1 chosen one. The strength of a chosen one was on a completely different level from that of a transcender. Then he came out of the 7th floor of the heavenly tower. At this moment, a woman appeared in front of her. This woman could definitely be described as devastatingly beautiful. Anyway, Yi Li had never seen such a beautiful woman. It seemed that this woman was about the same age as Yi Li, but her strength was that of a 5th-tier transcender. Yi Li was a little stunned. This was the first time he was so surprised since he had transmigrated to this world. The woman was about the same age as him, but she could actually reach the level of a 5th-tier transcender. How could there be such a genius in this world? However, Yi Li thought that at this level one's lifespan was very long. He felt that this woman should be very old, but she just looked to be about his age. What are you looking at? The woman noticed that Yi Li was looking at her. She rushed to Yi Li and stared at him coldly. Yi Li smiled. Of course I'm looking at you. How can one not look at you when a beauty like you appears in front of me? The woman was stunned. She looked at Yi Li up and down and found that Yi Li was really good looking. At least, she had never seen a handsome man like Yi Li. However, in this world, strength was everything. Being good looking was useless. The woman couldn't see through Yi Li's realm. She already regarded Yi Li as trash in her heart. Humph. Believe it or not, you are going to die soon. The woman stared at Yi Li and shouted coldly. Yi Li was a little stunned. What's wrong with these days? I didn't offend you. I just praised you for being beautiful. Chapter 532. Gao Ling. Yi Li looked at the woman indifferently and slowly said, Then before I die, can you make a request? The woman was stunned. She looked at the indifferent expression on Yi Li's face and thought that this person didn't seem to be afraid of her at all. She couldn't help but frown. What request? The woman stared at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. Tell me your name. The woman was a little stunned. She never expected Yi Li to say such a thing. B0X. Calm, you're not begging for mercy? She really didn't understand. Was this person not afraid of death? Actually, I've wanted to die for a long time. Tell me your name and help me, Yi Li said slowly. The woman was stunned. She had never seen anyone like Yi Li. He had wanted to die for a long time? Since you want to know my name so badly, I'll tell you that my name is Gao Ling. Gao Ling said coldly. This was the first time Yi Li had heard the name Gao Ling. He smiled casually. Now that I know your name, do it. Gao Ling stared at Yi Li. Do you really want to die? Come on. Yi Li said lightly. Gao Ling gritted her teeth. She had a bad temper. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted to escape from the arranged marriage, she wouldn't have come to the Northern Realm. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. With that, Gao Ling raised her palm and slapped Yi Li's body. Yi Li, on the other hand, stood still like a bell without any intention of resisting. Without a doubt, Gao Ling slapped Yi Li's body. To Gao Ling's surprise, Yi Li didn't take half a step back, and his face was as calm as ever as if he couldn't feel any pain. How is it possible? Gao Ling couldn't help but exclaim. She didn't expect that there would be such a powerhouse in the Northern Realm where spiritual energy was thin. She was a 5th-tier transcender. Such strength could be said to be terrifying, but her attack couldn't cause any damage to the person in front of her. Are you shocked? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling indifferently. Before Gao Ling could speak, she heard Yi Li continue, Don't be shocked forever because everything I, Yi Li, do will shock you for 3 days and 3 nights. As soon as he said this, Gao Ling instantly understood that the person in front of her was pretending to be weak. No wonder this person was so fearless. It turned out that he was so strong. Who are you? Gao Ling gritted her teeth and looked at Yi Li. My name is Yi Li. Yi Li smiled casually and continued, perhaps you can call me Demon King Yi Li, the future #1 powerhouse in the world. Gao Ling knew that she was definitely no match for Yi Li. She slapped Yi Li, but Yi Li was fine, which proved that Yi Li was much stronger than her. Are you the strongest person in the Northern Realm? Gao Ling stared at Yi Li, sort of. Yi Li slowly said. From your tone, aren't you from the Northern Realm? Yi Li asked again. Gao Ling snorted and said in a disdainful tone, my identity is so noble. How can I be from the Northern Realm? Even without Gao Ling telling him, Yi Li had guessed that Gao Ling must have an extraordinary background. It could be seen from her temperament. If you're not from the Northern Realm, why are you here? If I hadn't run away from the arranged marriage, would I have come to your Northern Realm? Gao Ling's tone was extremely arrogant, as if she despised the Northern Realm. Chapter 533. A group of 6th-tier transcenders. Yi Li found Gao Ling interesting. Oh, then you can leave the Northern Realm now. You are not welcome in the Northern Realm. Gao Ling was stunned for a few seconds before she came back to herself. She didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Does my arrival in the Northern Realm have anything to do with you? Gao Ling felt that Yi Li was really ridiculous. B0X. Come, how can it be unrelated? I'm the strongest person in the Northern Realm. If I want you to leave, you have to leave. If I want you to stay, you have to stay. Yi Li said lightly. Gao Ling was a little afraid, but she still pretended to be calm. What if one don't leave? Gao Ling stared at Yi Li. Then you have to be prepared to bear the consequences. With that, Yi Li walked towards Gao Ling step by step. Gao Ling looked at Yi Li, who was walking over, and began to retreat. What do you want? Yi Ling asked. Everyone knew what Sima Zhao was thinking. I'm sorry. Can't one apologize to you? Gao Ling's fair face was full of grievance. Yi Li smiled. He had wanted to scare Gao Ling. He had thought that it would be difficult for a girl like Gao Ling to apologize, but he didn't expect it to be so easy. Since you sincerely apologize, I'll forgive you, Yi Li said leisurely. Although Gao Ling apologized, she was very unconvinced. It seems that someone is here to die. Yi Li looked straight ahead. Gao Ling was stunned and panicked. They're here to catch me. What should I do? Yi Li checked the realms of these people with heavenly spirit eyes and found that they were all 6th-tier transcenders. A transcender was comparable to a master-level zombie, so Yi Li certainly wasn't afraid. What are you afraid of? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling impatiently. Immediately, 7 6th-tier transcenders appeared in front of Yi Li. Linger, come back with us. It's for the good of our sword sect that we let you marry into the Heavenly Blade sect. That's right, Linger. Recently, there have been more and more dark race members and zombies outside the Sword City. If it weren't for the help of the Heavenly Blade sect, our sword sect would have been doomed. Hearing this conversation, Yi Li roughly understood what was going on. However, he felt that as a member of the sword sect, Gao Ling should step forward in times of danger. She was just sacrificing her own happiness. A little woman was a little woman after all. She was willful. But I really don't like Shi Yun. Gao Ling said gloomily. Linger, in the East Realm, you and Shi Yun are known as a dragon and a phoenix. You're a match made in heaven. What's there to dislike? Yi Li thought to himself, so Shi Yun is also a super genius, known as a dragon and a phoenix with Gao Ling, but it's hard to say about love. Love, whether you complicated it or simplified it, was ultimately about 4 phrases. I love you, I hate you, are you okay, and I'm sorry. Linger, do you want to ignore the sword sect for your own sake? A middle-aged man shouted. Yi Li thought that these 6th-tier transcenders in front of him should have some weight in the sword sect. They should be outer sect elders. After all, he had read many Wuxia novels when he was in Wuxia. By the way, are there many zombies in your place? Yi Li suddenly asked. The 7 6th-tier transcenders were a little stunned. They didn't take Yi Li seriously at all, nor did they expect Yi Li to interrupt. Who are you? A 6th-tier transcender looked at Yi Li. It doesn't matter who 1 am. Just answer my question, Yi Li said slowly. Chapter 534. You are also members of the Apocalypse Legion. The 7 6th-tier transceivers were a little stunned, wondering what was wrong with the person in front of them. I repeat, answer my question. Yi Li said slowly. Brat, are you looking for death? A 6th-tier transcender roared. Yi Li's handsome face didn't change at all. He looked indifferently at the 6th-tier transcender who spoke. Believe it or not, I can make you fall to the ground with my eyes. B0X. Calm, arrogant, absolutely arrogant. Just as Yi Li had guessed, the 7 of them were all outer elders of the sword sect. They were all 6th-tier transcenders and had seen countless arrogant people, but this was the first time they had seen someone as arrogant as Yi Li. Brat you! But before the 6th-tier surpasser finished speaking, he let out a shocking scream. All? The scream was really creepy. The remaining 6th-tier transcenders were stunned. Before they could see how Yi Li attacked, a bloody hole appeared on Elder Zhang's leg. You, Yi Li smiled calmly. Don't be afraid. One just want to know if there are many zombies in your place. Yes, there are many dark race members and zombies gathered outside Sword City now, Gao Ling said in shock. She thought to herself, fortunately I didn't go too far just now. Otherwise I would have ended up like Elder Zhang. Now there were almost no zombies in the entire northern realm. They had all perished in that battle, so Yi Li could only go elsewhere. Immediately Yi Li raised his palm, and a gentle golden spiritual light entered the wound on Elder Zhang's leg. A miracle happened. The wound on Elder Zhang's leg healed at a visible speed. How is this possible? Gao Ling and the 6th-tier transcenders widened their eyes in shock. Of course they had never seen such a divine technique in their lives. Elder Zhang was also stunned. He looked at his thigh in shock. The wound was gone? Your talent is only SSS grade. Why is your realm so high? Gao Ling looked at Yi Li in confusion. This time it was Yi Li's turn to be stunned. An SSS level genetic talent was the highest in the northern realm. Was it very low in the eastern realm? Of course Yi Li wouldn't tell Gao Ling that he had a system. I'm going to your place, Yi Li said. To our place. Gao Ling looked at Yi Li in confusion. Yi Li smiled. That's right. It's a great opportunity for you to meet me, Demon King Yi Li. But before that you have to go somewhere with me. Gao Ling and the 6th-tier transcenders were a little stunned. Meeting him was a great opportunity? What did it mean? By the time they came back to their senses, Yi Li had already walked more than a dozen steps away. They looked at each other and immediately followed him. Yi Li took them to the Warrior Alliance. Xiahou Jie was a 10th-tier transcender after all. He was a little puzzled to see Yi Li brought back so many transcenders. Yi Li said that Xiahou Jie said that he was leaving the northern realm. He arrived in front of the 11 women. Senior, you're back. Xiao Hui smiled sweetly at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. Are you willing to go with me? As soon as he said this, the 11 women were all stunned. Senior, where are you going? Ziqiong asked. You'll find out when we get there, Yi Li said slowly. By the way, from today on, you are also members of the Apocalypse Legion. Yi Li said to the 11 women. Chapter 535, Coming to the Eastern Realm. Xiao Hui, Lu Qian, Su Suner, Lu Qian, Chen Ruxue, Lu Qingxue, Luoyu, Luoli, Ziqiong, Ling Fei and Li Yanlu were all shocked. Senior, are we members of the Apocalypse Legion? Xiao Hui looked at Yi Li and asked. They naturally knew about the Apocalypse Legion. That's right, because I will take you away from here. Yi Li slowly said. Gao Ling and the 6th-tier transcenders were all stunned. Did Yi Li mean that he was going to take these women all to Sword City? B0X. Calm. Their shocked expression was naturally seen by Yi Li. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling indifferently. I don't think you will refuse. Now, Gao Ling finally understood what kind of person Yi Li was. She had thought that Yi Li was just a super strong megalomaniac, but after seeing so many beauties she felt that not only was she wrong but she was completely wrong. Miss, look. A 6th-tier transcender said softly to Gao Ling. Gao Ling gritted her teeth and stared at Yi Li. Yi Li's tone seemed unquestionable. What do you mean? Gao Ling said coldly. Yi Li smiled. I don't mean anything special. One just want to tell you that I'm taking them to Sword City. By the way, they aren't the only soldiers in the Apocalypse Legion. With that, Yi Li released Ada and the others from the system space. Roar. What? Gao Ling looked at the 8 zombies in front of her and couldn't help but take 3 steps back in fright. How is this possible? Gao Ling's eyes were filled with horror. She would never have dreamed that such a scene would happen. It was the same for the 6th-tier transcenders. There were actually Lord-level zombies, and the lowest was a 9th-tier Master-level zombie. Yi Li's handsome face didn't change at all. He said casually to Gao Ling, let's go dash. Since the ancient devil tome became the ancient dragon abyss sword embryo, Yi Li was no longer a demon but a human. But if he had to choose, he was certainly willing to be a demon. Gao Ling didn't understand why Yi Li wanted to go to the Sword City. She remembered Yi Li asking her if there were many zombies in the Sword City. Could it be? Suddenly, Gao Ling thought of an extremely shocking possibility. Was he going to subdue the zombies? Gao Ling didn't know how Yi Li could control zombies. Gao Ling and the 6th-tier transcenders had no room to refuse. They had seen how terrifying Yi Li was. In this way Yili took the Apocalypse Legion to the Eastern Realm. The Eastern Realm was countless times larger than the Northern Realm, so the spiritual energy was naturally much more abundant. As soon as Yili arrived in the Eastern Realm, he heard the system's voice in his mind. Ding. The host's genetic talent has been upgraded to the heaven-defying level. Yili was stunned. Heaven-defying level? The host's genetic talent far exceeds the SSS grade, but the highest genetic talent in the Northern Realm can only be at the SSS grade. Hearing what the system said, Yili understood. Soon Yili and the Apocalypse Legion arrived outside Sword City. At this moment there were countless zombies outside the Sword City. To Yili's surprise, there were many high-leveled zombies among these zombies. It seemed that the zombies in the east were much stronger than those in the Northern Realm. Yili, let's go back to the Sword Sect first. Gao Ling looked at Yili. Yili nodded and followed Gao Ling onto a hidden path. Soon they arrived at the Sword Sect. The Sword Sect was undoubtedly a sect that focused on swords. As soon as he arrived at the Sword Sect, countless disciples cast strange looks at him. Chapter 536. I'm here to help you. Why did Senior Sister Gao and the elders bring so many people back? I wonder if he's a new disciple of the Sword Sect. Are you kidding me? Who dares to join the Sword Sect at this critical moment? The outer sect disciples of the Sword Sect all discussed. The Sword Sect had 10 sword peaks, and there was a peak master on each peak. There was a blunt sword mountain besides the 10 sword peaks, which was the outer sect of the Sword Sect. B0X. The Sword Palace was where the Sword Sect master lived. At this moment, Gao Ling led Yili and the others to the Sword Palace. Look, those look like zombies. An outer sect disciple exclaimed. As soon as he said this, the disciples all looked at him in shock. It didn't matter if they didn't look, but they all took 3 steps back in fright. There were 8 zombies. Judging from the fluctuations of their auras, the strength of these 8 zombies had reached an astounding level. There are zombies in the Blunt Sword Mountain, but why do Senior Sister Gao and the elders seem to turn a blind eye to it? Are they bewitched? What are you talking about? Senior Sister Gao and the elders are so strong. Yili chose to ignore these outer sect disciples. The 7 6th-tier transcenders were all elders of the outer sect of the Sword Sect. They didn't follow him to the Sword Palace. Yili and the Apocalypse Legion arrived outside the Sword Palace. Yili, my father. Before Gao Ling finished speaking, Yili walked in, followed by the Apocalypse Legion. What's the big deal? Gao Ling looked at Yili's back and stomped her feet in anger. Yili and the Apocalypse Legion walked into the hall. There were 8 zombies and 11 women, as well as the sky-swallowing dog Xiaohei. At this moment, in the Sword Palace, the sect master of the Sword Sect, Gao Changfeng, was discussing something with the 10 peak masters. They were all stunned to see Yili and the Apocalypse Legion. Well? Yili looked at Gao Changfeng. The strength of the Sword Sect's sect master was indeed extraordinary. He was actually a Tier 2 Chosen One. He was now a Tier 1 Chosen One, but if they really fought, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of Gao Changfeng. As for the top 10 peak masters, they were all 10th tier transcenders. Suddenly, the Sword Sect master, Gao Changfeng, and the top 10 peak masters all surrounded Yili and the Apocalypse Legion, each holding a sword. Linger, who are they? Gao Changfeng shouted coldly. Yili smiled faintly. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yili. You can call me Yili, the Demon King, or the future #1 powerhouse in the world. I can control zombies. I'm here to help you, Yili continued. As soon as he said this, Gao Changfeng and the 10 peak masters were all a little stunned. Gao Ling was shocked. She hadn't thought of why Yili came to Sword City, but now she was a little shocked to hear this. Father, Yili is right. He is, Gao Ling hurriedly said to her father, or they would probably start a fight. But before she finished speaking, she was interrupted by Gao Changfeng. Nonsense. Although Gao Changfeng didn't know who Yili was, his intuition told him that Yili was definitely not a good person. 8 high-leveled zombies. 2 Lord-level zombies, 3 10th-tier Master-level zombies, and 3 level 9 Master-level zombies. This was too terrifying. Why did you come to our Sword Sect? Gao Feng stared at Yili. Yili smiled. Didn't I say that I'm here to help you? Why don't you believe me? Gao Changfeng sneered. Of course he wouldn't believe it. Not only him, but probably no one would believe it. Chapter 537. The zombies were attacking the city. Yili secretly sighed. Why didn't Gao Changfeng believe him even if he was telling the truth? Tell me, what are you here for? Gao Changfeng stared at Yili. Yili smiled. Before he said anything, a disciple ran in and exclaimed at Gao Changfeng. Sect Master, the zombies are attacking the city. The main peak of the Sword Sect was called Sword Peak. Sword Peak was in Sword City and there were many people in Sword City. B0XO. Calm hearing this, Gao Changfeng and the 10 peak masters of the Sword Sect were instantly shocked. Order all the disciples of the Sword Sect to resist with all their strength. Yes. There were only more than 10,000 disciples of the Sword Sect, but there were hundreds of thousands of zombies. In addition, there were many high-leveled zombies and many high-leveled dark race members. Sword City was not a base city. There were at least armies in the base city and they had very destructive weapons. Even if they blocked this, it would probably greatly damage the Sword Sect. Then Gao Feng and the top 10 peak masters hurriedly walked out of the Sword Palace. Sword City, City Wall. The disciples of the Sword Sect killed the zombies with their sword chi, but there were too many zombies. The sword chi would eventually be used up, and the zombies used the method of stacking. They kept piling up on the city wall with numbers which looked really creepy. Yili had seen such a scene countless times. This was exactly what he wanted. Gao Changfeng and the top 10 peak masters began to use various sword techniques to slaughter the zombies. But they were not Yili after all, whose every blow was a large-scale killing skill. Sect Master, we can't hold on anymore. A peak master said to Gao Changfeng. Gao Changfeng gritted his teeth. Use the sky-breaking sword array. Gao Changfeng gritted his teeth. Use the sky-breaking sword array. A sword wheel appeared in front of them. Immediately, overwhelming sharp swords flew out of the sword wheel. Countless zombies rolled down from the city wall, which made people's scalps tingle. Sect Master, there are too many zombies. The sky-breaking sword array can only block them for a while. Another peak master said to Gao Changfeng. Roar, roar. At this moment, countless zombies' terrifying cries entered everyone's ears. Undoubtedly, the zombies began to attack the city again. Yili watched this scene leisurely. He found it quite interesting. Gao Ling ran to Yili and said to him in a panicked voice, Yili, didn't you say that you were here to help us? Come on, do it. Gao Ling was about to cry. Yili smiled faintly. Okay. In fact, even without Gao Ling's reminder, he was about to take action. After all, the number of zombies had decreased. The Apocalypse Legion, attack. Yili gave an order to the Apocalypse Legion. Immediately, the Apocalypse Legion began to jump down. As the saying went, holding up the turbulent waves in the face of downfall, holding up the skyscraper in the face of downfall. It wasn't that the Apocalypse Legion could turn the situation around with the power of merely 8 zombies, but that Yili could deal with the zombies with the synthesized ones. As everyone knew, the synthesized zombies were 100% obedient to Yili, and their levels would be higher. After all, they were synthesized. In this way, Yili synthesized more and more zombies. And there were fewer and fewer zombies that hadn't been synthesized. The entire crisis was resolved by Yili. Ding. Bai Wawa has been upgraded to a Tier 1 Lord level zombie. Yutong has been upgraded to a Tier 1 Lord level zombie. All Chi has been upgraded to a Tier 1 Lord level zombie. Yili nodded in satisfaction. He turned around to look at Gao Changfeng and the disciples of the Sword Sect, only to find that they were all frozen in place like sculptures. Chapter 538. Chui Han was just that ruthless translator. Nioibo Studio editor. Nioibo Studio. Outside the door, Xylan's heart was pounding in her throat. She had even pictured herself covered in blood, but the pain hadn't reached her. She cautiously opened her eyes. Beneath the dazzling torchlight, a woman's body lay on the ground in an odd posture. Minjia. Chu Xiaotian was the first to react, rushing over to Minjia. However, when he helped her up, Minjia started to wail. It hurts. Brother, it hurts so much. It hurts. B0XO. She didn't know where the force came from, but it sent her flying. She fell face first to the ground, and every bone in her body hurt as if it had been dismantled. It was a piercing pain. The strong wind that swept past Chu Qingye made him look warily at the door of the medicine hut. Imperial Uncle. Chu Qingye's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't sensed Chu Yihan's arrival at all. How powerful was his martial arts? He could suddenly appear in front of everyone and strike Minjia. Chu Yihan's arrival caused the surrounding atmosphere to suddenly drop. His domineering aura made everyone involuntarily lower their heads. His cold gaze shifted to Chu Qingye and he asked coldly, "Who gave you the courage to intrude into the Marquis Manor?" Chu Qingye was unconvinced. He was a prince and now the temporary minister of justice. He was noble, yet Chu Yihan accused him of trespassing into Marquis Manor. However, on the surface he had no choice but to lower his head to Chui Han. Imperial uncle, please forgive me. One heard from Sister Min Jia that the regional princess had been kidnapped by Su Yingxue, and my brother was also in trouble here. That's why I rushed over. After all, a member of the imperial family cannot be bullied in the Marquis manner. No. That's right. It's fine if Imperial uncle doesn't support us, but why do you want to attack me? Min Jia was supported by Chu Xiaotian and could only sit on the ground. Her legs were in so much pain that she had no strength at all. She didn't even know how many bones she had broken. But she hated him so much. Why did Chui Han hit her? Chui Han looked at Min Jia in disdain. Are you worthy of being a member of the imperial family? From which imperial consort were you born? You are just a commoner's daughter. Imperial uncle, be careful with your words. My sister and one are of the same mother. Her status is noble. Of course, she is a member of the imperial family. Chu Xiaotian couldn't stand Chu Yihan's humiliation and stood up for Min Jia. Mo Qi reminded him, don't you know? Madame Sheng has been stripped of her imperial mandate and demoted to a commoner. Chu Xiaoshan's face turned pale. He didn't expect Chu Yihan to be so ruthless. He demoted his mother. Even hurt his sister. Chu Qingye, this place doesn't allow you to make any noise. Take your imperial guards and get out of my courtyard. Chu Yihan knew very well that Su Yingxue's surgery was not completed yet and she needed some peace. Chu Qingye was unwilling. Su Yingxue's figure was still clearly visible through the window, but he couldn't see her again. He gritted his teeth and refused. Imperial uncle, Su Yingxue is not the only one in this medicine hut. There is also cousin's wife, the regional princess. Imperial uncle should stand up for cousin and make Su Yingxue hand over regional princess. Even if Chu Yihan chased him away, he couldn't be chased away so easily. However, he had forgotten that Chu Yihan would never reason with him. There was a trace of hostility in his dark eyes. Do you want to get lost yourself or do you want me to do it? Imperial uncle, please calm down. Chu Xiaotian quickly stepped forward and grabbed Chu Qingye's arm. Seventh brother, go out first. It's not a good time to disobey Imperial uncle. In terms of martial arts and power, a few of them were no match for Chu Yihan. It was better to recognize the situation. Chapter 539, Xinyuan Sword. Yi Li arrived at the Sword Palace. Gao Changfeng got someone to bring a throne over and Yi Li sat on it. Yi Li, to be honest, our sword sect can only be considered a third-rate force in the Eastern Realm now. The sword sect used to be the strongest force in the Eastern Realm, because the sword sect had the Xinyuan sword, but now the Xinyuan sword has been sealed. Yi Li was shocked to hear that. B0XO. Com Xinyuan sword? The Xinyuan sword, one of the 10 great divine weapons? The current Xinyuan sword is just a piece of junk. Gao Changfeng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Sect Master Gao, where is the Xinyuan sword? Yi Li looked at Gao Changfeng and asked. Gao Changfeng was a little stunned. He didn't understand why Yi Li asked this. The Xinyuan sword is in the sword cave in the back mountain. Although he didn't know why Yi Li asked the Xinyuan sword, he answered. Go there with me. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling and said. Gao Ling nodded. Okay. Then Yi Li and Gao Ling went to the back mountain. Soon the two of them arrived at the sword cave in the back mountain. The sword cave was full of swords and they looked quite good. Vice Sect Master, that's the Xinyuan sword. Gao Ling pointed at the rusty Xinyuan sword. Yi Li looked in the direction of Gao Ling's finger and found that the Xinyuan sword had been deeply embedded in the stone wall. It was the same when he first saw the dragon-slaying blade. It was rusty too. Yi Li slowly walked under the Xinyuan sword and took it down. Ding. The Xinyuan sword has already lost its weapon spirit. If you want to restore the Xinyuan sword, you have to find the weapon spirit of the Xinyuan sword. Where is the weapon spirit of the Xinyuan sword? I have no idea. Yi Li sweated. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to draw the lottery. Yi Li's eyes lit up and he quickly used it. Then he began the lottery. The virtual pointer started spinning in the roulette. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a super treasure map. Without further thought, Yi Li activated the super treasure map. Immediately the coordinates appeared in Yi Li's mind. The coordinates pointed at the East Bay City. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling. Gao Ling, where is the East Bay City? His intuition told him that the treasure on the super treasure map this time was the weapon spirit of the Xinyuan sword, because he had always been very lucky. Gao Ling was a little stunned. She didn't understand why Yi Li suddenly asked this question. She told Yi Li the direction of the East Bay City. Let's go to the East Bay City. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Li took Gao Ling's hand and activated the swift steps. heading towards the East Base City. The East Base City was a large base city. After arriving at the East Base City, Yili and Gao Ling came to the slums. Yili didn't expect there to be a slum in this big base city. People living here were really poor. However, Yili wondered how to find the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword. He had no idea where to start. "Hey beauty, you're so pretty." A brawny man appeared in front of Yili. This man was a Tier 5 evolved being. There was a long scar on his face which looked scary. "Get lost." Gao Ling shouted coldly at the scar-faced man, and spiritual energy burst out of her body. The scar-faced man was instantly sent flying. The people in the slum were all stunned. How dare they hit the younger brother of the leader of the Black Axe organization? Alas, two more fearless idiots. It took the scar-faced man a long time to get up from the ground. He stared at Gao Ling and shouted angrily, "You! How dare you hit me?" Chapter 540, Killing in the Mortal World. Although the slum belonged to the East Bay City, it was not in the East Bay City. This place was managed by an organization called Black Axe. The scar-faced man's name was Scar 2, and he was the younger brother of the leader of the Black Axe organization. Scar 2 walked to Gao Ling angrily, pointed at her and shouted, "Do you know who I am?" In the eyes of everyone, Yili and Gao Ling were in trouble because they beat up Scar 2. They were already doomed. B0XO. Unfortunately, they never expected such a scene to happen next. The moment Scar 2 pointed at Gao Ling, his eyes widened and he fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. The onlookers were stunned. They didn't expect that Gao Ling would dare to kill Scar 2. Yili looked at the disdainful Gao Ling and said indifferently, "This is a life. How can you kill him so easily? He doesn't know his place. He's just a Tier 5 evolved being, an ant. How dare he provoke me?" Gao Ling said. Yili smiled. With this bad temper, she was just like a fiery chili on a high mountain or the big stone in the middle of a river. "Leave quickly. He is the younger brother of the leader of the Black Axes." A middle-aged man hurriedly came over and said to Yili and Gao Ling in a low voice, "Don't worry. The Black Axe organization is just an ant in our eyes." Yili slowly said. The middle-aged man was stunned and then sighed heavily. Relying on his strength and background, Scar 2 tyrannized the slum and didn't take anyone seriously. The slum deeply suffered from his actions. Now that Scar 2 was dead, many people were overjoyed. This middle-aged man was here to remind Yili and Gao Ling kindly. But now Gao Ling and Yili didn't listen. As the saying went, sins imposed by fate can be forgiven, but self-inflicted sins are unforgivable. Soon the Black Axe organization learned the news. The leader, Scar 1, walked over angrily with more than 100 people from the Black Axe organization. The hundreds of people from the Black Axe organization each held an axe, looking intimidating. Seeing this situation, everyone was frightened. Scar 1 looked at Scar 2's body on the ground, and his eyes began to turn red. Yili found that Scar 2 was not weak. He was actually a 10th tier evolved being. However, Gao Ling was a phoenix in the wasteland of the Eastern Realm. With Shi Yun from the Heavenly Blade sect, they were known as a dragon and a phoenix. Yili had thought that Gao Ling was a peerless genius, but he didn't expect that she was only a peerless genius in the wasteland. The wasteland alone was probably bigger than the Northern Realm. "Who killed my brother? Come out." Scar 1 roared. "It's me. What's wrong?" Gao Ling's tone was extremely disdainful. Yili stood aside and looked at Gao Ling quietly. Gao Ling was really beautiful, but unfortunately he had always been face blind and couldn't tell if a person was beautiful or not. "What's wrong? I'm going to kill you and avenge my brother. Go." Scar 1 roared. Suddenly, more than 100 people from the Black Axe organization rushed over. As a 5th-tier transcender, these people were like ants in her eyes. A green sword appeared in her hand and she slashed out. Swish. Then a terrifying sword light appeared, and the scene instantly became tragic. The onlookers all gasped. It wasn't until now that they realized that Gao Ling was from the Sword Sect. Chapter 541, Black Market Auction. The Sword Sect had existed since before the post-apocalyptic world erupted. They had been using swords since ancient times, and now they were still using swords. Therefore, when Gao Ling took out the green-clothed sword and showed the power of the sword, they knew that she was from the Sword Sect. To them, the Sword Sect was one of the supreme forces. At this moment, Scar 1 was still standing where he was. His entire body began to tremble, and he was already scared out of his wits. Gao Ling walked towards Scar 1 step by step. Seeing Gao Ling walking over, Scar 2 felt as if an evil ghost was taking his life. B0XO. Don't come over. Before Gao Ling walked over, Scar One screamed in fright. Yi Li smiled faintly, thinking that this was human nature. Swish. As a terrifying sword light appeared in front of everyone, Scar One disappeared from this world forever. Everyone swallowed. At this moment they would never think that Gao Ling was a beauty but a demoness, a complete demoness. How is it? Gao Ling looked at Yi Li as if showing off. Nothing much. Yi Li slowly said. He had no time to care about such a trivial matter now. He had to find the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword first. In this slum, where could he find the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword? After thinking for a few seconds, Yi Li felt that even if he racked his brains, he couldn't figure out where the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword was. At this point he could only take it one step at a time. By the way, Deputy Sect Master, what are you doing in the East Bay City? And this is the slum area. Gao Ling looked at Yi Li in confusion. Do you think I need to tell you? Yi Li said lightly to Gao Ling. Gao Ling was stunned. She didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Let's go. Yi Li said slowly. Where are you going? Gao Ling looked at Yi Li. To be honest, Yi Li didn't know where to go at this moment. He could only walk around and see if he could meet the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword. After walking around randomly, Yi Li and Gao Ling came to a place. This place was also a poor slum, but the buildings were much better looking. Besides, there were all kinds of things sold here and there were countless genetic warriors on the street. This stunned Yi Li. He didn't expect there to be such a place in the poor slum. Deputy Sect Master, this is the black market in the slum district. Gao Ling mumbled. Then Yi Li learned from Gao Ling that the black market in the slums was the preferred place for East Bay City and various surrounding powers to tread upon. Especially the auction in the black market, there were weapons, cultivation techniques, and many different medicines. Yi Li thought that since there were no clues about the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword at the moment, he might as well go to the auction to take a look. Then Yi Li and Gao Ling went to the black market auction. After the auction he found that there were already many people inside. These people were all genetic warriors. Next, let's auction a B-grade attack skill, Stone Splitting Palm. The starting price is 500,000 post-apocalyptic coins. Every increment must be no less than 100,000 post-apocalyptic coins. 600,000. 800,000. He'll pay $1 million. As soon as he said this, the genetic warriors in the black market auction shook their heads. $1 million for a B-grade skill was already the highest price. Immediately afterward, a few more items were auctioned, but Yi Li didn't care about any of them. These things were useless to him. Gao Ling and Yi Li had the same thoughts. As the daughter of the Sword Sect Master, she had seen all kinds of treasures. Chapter 542, The Sword Spirit in the Star Iron. Next up is 1,000 caddies of star iron. The starting price is 800,000 post-apocalyptic coins. Every increment must be no less than 100,000 post-apocalyptic coins. Star iron was the best iron for forging weapons. As soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, several genetic warriors began to scramble. $1 million. B0XO. Come, 1. 1 million. 1. 3 million. Yi Li peeped at the 1,000 kilograms of star iron with the heavenly spirit eyes. Then he was stunned. He found a sword spirit in the star iron. Suddenly he thought of a shocking possibility. That was, the sword spirit in the star iron was the weapon spirit of the Xuanyuan sword. What a shocking possibility was this? Thinking of this, Yi Li looked a bit excited. Humph, isn't it just star iron? Our sword sect has plenty of it. Gao Ling watched the genetic warriors scramble for the star iron, and a mocking smile appeared on her fair face. 2 million. At this moment Yi Li raised the sign in his hand. Gao Ling was stunned. She looked at Yi Li in shock. Deputy Sect Master, why are you buying star iron? If you want star iron, there are many of them in the sword sect. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling and shook his head slowly. Women have long hair but are short-sighted. Gao Ling couldn't help but tremble when she heard this. She would never have dreamed that her kindness would be taken as ill. 3 million. 1 million. At this time, the price of star iron had been raised to more than 3 million. 5 million. At this moment, an arrogant voice entered everyone's ears. All the genetic warriors looked in the direction of the voice and found an extraordinary-looking youth walking into the auction house. It's Tang Qiu, the young master of the Tang family, one of the 3 big families in the East Bay City. Alas, one originally wanted to buy 1,000 caddies of star iron to make a few good weapons, but now I can't. Tang Qiu looked at all the genetic warriors in the black market auction house in disdain. This 1,000 kilograms of star iron belongs to me, Tang Qiu. If one say one want it, I must take it. As soon as he said that, all the genetic warriors in the black market auction house fell silent. 5 million post-apocalyptic coins once. 5 million post-apocalyptic coins twice. 5 million post-apocalyptic coins 3 times? The auctioneer had already raised the hammer and was about to say the last word. But at this critical moment, a lazy voice entered everyone's ears. 1 million. All the genetic warriors were shocked to hear that. They hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice. They didn't expect that someone would dare to compete with Tang Qiu for this 1,000-kilogram star stone. The person who spoke was naturally Yi Li. Gao Ling, on the other hand, looked cross. She had just kindly reminded Yi Li, but Yi Li said that she had long hair and was short-sighted. Tang Qiu didn't expect it either. He stared at Yi Li and gritted his teeth. 6 million. Yi Li's handsome face didn't change at all. He had nothing but money. 1 million. Yi Li said lightly. All the genetic warriors were stunned and looked at Yi Li and Tang Qiu. Who is this person? Does he not know who Tang Qiu is? He's probably from a certain sect, but the Tang family is not afraid of those sections. Let's see. There will be a good show later. Tang Qiu's eyes were burning with fury. He could swear that this was the angriest he had been since he was born. 8 million. Tang Qiu gritted his teeth and said again. Chapter 543, You are trash. 1 million. Yi Li slowly spoke, but there was still no change in his handsome face. Tang Qiu burst into fury. He walked to Yi Li and stared at him. Every time one raised the price, you only increase it by 100,000. What does this mean? All the genetic warriors in the black market auction house looked at each other in bewilderment. They couldn't afford to offend Tang Qiu. If they fought, they wondered if they could help Tang Qiu to curry favor with the Tang family. Updated on B0X and 0ville. I Yi Li can add as much as I want. When did it become your turn to speak, you trash? Yi Li looked at Tang Qiu indifferently. What? All the genetic warriors couldn't help taking a breath when they heard this. They looked at Yi Li dumbfounded. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't imagine that Yi Li would dare to say such a thing. Young Master Tang was trash? Tang Qiu was an absolute genius in the East Bay City. She had become an 8th-tier evolved being at the age of 24. The auctioneer was at a loss. He knew that he couldn't afford to offend Tang Qiu, so he could only wait for the matter to be resolved. Say that again if you have balls. Tang Qiu stared at Yi Li. No one had ever dared to call him trash since he was born. This was the first time in history. Yi Li smiled calmly and looked at Tang Qiu. Not only are you trash, but you're also an ant, a pitiful ant. Isn't that right? After that, Yi Li looked at Gao Ling. Gao Ling was stunned. She didn't expect Yi Li to suddenly talk to her. I don't think so. He's already an 8th-tier evolved being at such a young age. He's clearly a super genius, Gao Ling said to Yi Li. Yi Li was a little embarrassed, not expecting this girl said this at such a moment. Tang Qiu smiled proudly. She looked at Yi Li and said, Your woman said that I'm a super genius. I wonder if you have any thoughts now? Thoughts? Yi Li smiled and looked at Tang Qiu indifferently. I, Yi Li, like to beat geniuses. If you don't disappear in front of me, bear the consequences. As the young master of the Tang family since birth, Tang Qiu had always been the center of attention. He couldn't tolerate such words, making him extremely irritated to the core. I think you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Tang Qiu said firmly. I won't cry even if I see a coffin, because I will never need a coffin. Yi Li said lightly. As soon as he said so, a scream entered everyone's ears. Ali. The scream came from Tang Qiu, of course. He was sent flying. The genetic warriors in the black market auction house were stunned. They didn't see how Yi Li attacked at all, but Tang Qiu was sent flying. Tang Qiu was an 8th-tier evolved being. Yi Li's face didn't change at all, as if nothing had happened. He slowly walked towards Tang Qiu. I told you not only are you trash, but you're also a pitifully weak ant. Why didn't you believe me? Yi Li looked at Tang Qiu indifferently. Tang Qiu stared at Yi Li and got up from the ground. Just you wait. Tang Qiu pointed a finger at Yi Li, indicating that he should wait for him to call for reinforcements. Ali. Another agonizing scream like that of slaughtering a pig came from Tang Qiu's mouth. It was because his finger, pointing towards Yi Li, had suffered a comminuted fracture. Chapter 544. The complete Xinyuan sword. The genetic warriors in the black market auction house took 3 steps back, their eyes filled with horror. How is this possible? They hadn't seen Yi Li take action until now. They finally understood that Tang Qiu had provoked a supreme existence. Yili looked at Tang Qiu, who was still screaming like a pig being slaughtered, and slowly said, "Don't ever point a finger at my head. I once vowed not to let anyone point a finger at my head again." With that, Yili slowly walked to the auction platform. Updated on B0X and 0vil. Although Gao Ling was a little confused, she still chose to follow him. Yili looked at the auctioneer indifferently and said, "I'll buy this 1,000 caddies of star iron. Do you have any objections?" The auctioneer was already scared out of his wits. How could he dare to refuse Yili? Fine, fine, fine. Immediately, Yili put 1,000 caddies of star iron into the system space. Seeing this, the genetic warriors in the auction house were shocked again. They really couldn't understand why the 1,000 kilograms of star iron suddenly disappeared. "Pay the money." Yili looked at Gao Ling. Gao Ling was stunned. Huh. Yili ignored Gao Ling and slowly left. Gao Ling looked at Yili's back and felt a little indignant. Then she took out a post-apocalyptic card, paid, and quickly followed him. Yili found a quiet place and prepared to study the star iron. Right, Yili suddenly remembered that he had an extraction technique. He had bought it from the Point Mall when he extracted corpse crystals from zombies for the sky-swallowing dog, Xiaohei. He planned to see if he could extract the sword spirit in the 1,000 kilograms of star iron with the extraction technique. Bring it out. As Yili expected, he extracted the sword spirit of the star stone and threw the star iron to the ground. Deputy Sect Master, one spent more than 8 million points of post-apocalyptic coins to buy this 1,000 caddies of star iron. Why did you throw it away? Gao Ling looked at Yili in shock. You didn't see anything? Yili asked. Gao Ling looked around and found nothing. What should I see? Yili ignored Gao Ling. It turned out that Gao Ling couldn't see the sword spirit extracted from the 1,000 kilograms of star iron. Ding. The weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword has been detected. Next, you can synthesize the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword with the Shenyuan sword. Yili's face lit up. He was a little speechless at his shocking luck. He just went to the auction and found the weapon spirit of the Shenyuan sword? Without thinking too much, he synthesized the weapon spirit with the Shenyuan sword. Ding. Synthesis begins, IO%, 30%, 60%, 100%. The Shenyuan sword's weapon spirit has successfully synthesized with the Shenyuan sword. All of a sudden, the rusty Shenyuan sword in Yili's system space instantly became shining. A golden sword appeared in the system space. This was the complete Shenyuan sword. Yili secretly smiled. After he got the Shenyuan sword, this was his fourth divine weapon. However, he had to wait until he triggered the trial of the Shenyuan sword before fusing the Shenyuan sword into the ancient Dragon Abyss sword. At that time, the power of the ancient Dragon Abyss sword, Yili didn't dare to think about it anymore. And Gao Ling undoubtedly didn't know any of this. Let's go. Yili slowly said. Seeing that Yili had no intention of picking up the 1,000 kilograms of star iron on the ground, Gao Ling couldn't help but look a little angry. Deputy Sect Master, are you going to abandon the star iron? Gao Ling stared at Yili and asked. Chapter 545. Who else wants to stop me? Yili looked at Gao Ling and said indifferently, didn't you say that the sword sect has a lot of star iron? Then it shouldn't matter whether you take this piece or not, right? With those words, Yili slowly walked forward. Gao Ling was so angry that she was about to go crazy. She really couldn't understand that there was someone like Yili in this world. But what could she do? She could only follow. But after only a few steps, a group of genetic warriors surrounded them. Updated on B0X and 0vil. You're the one who injured Xiao Qiu? A 10th tier evolved being stared at Yili. Most of the genetic warriors who surrounded Yili and Gao Ling were 7th tier to 8th order evolved beings. This 10th tier evolved being was the leader. I don't know Xiao Qiu. Yili shook his head. The 10th tier evolved being was furious. What else do you have to pretend to be? Perhaps you don't know yet, but we are all from the Tang family. There was no fluctuation on Gao Ling's fair face. She was a 5th tier transcender. These genetic warriors who weren't even transcender were pitifully weak in her eyes, not to mention that they were facing Yili. Get out of the way. Treasure your bodies, Yili said slowly. Not only the 10th tier evolved beings, but even the genetic warriors who surrounded Yili and Gao Ling were stunned. They really didn't understand why Yili could still be so calm in such a situation. Brat, I'll show you how powerful the Tang family is today. As soon as he said so, the 10th tier evolved being had already taken action. Unfortunately, how could this 10th tier evolved being get close to Yili? He was now a chosen one. Swish. A white spiritual attack burst out of Yili's finger. Ever since he came to the wasteland of the Eastern Realm, Yi Li's genetic talent had become heaven-defying, and his original golden spiritual energy had turned into white spiritual energy. As the wind-breaking sound sounded, the 10th tier evolved being fell to the ground. Oh, it hurts. It hurts. The 10th tier evolved being rolled on the ground in pain. He felt a heart-wrenching pain, which was like 10,000 ants biting his heart. Does anyone else want to try? Yi Li looked at the evolvers who surrounded him and Gao Ling indifferently. The evolved beings of the Tang family were shocked. Even a 10th tier evolved being had been knocked down with one blow. How could they resist Yi Li? Then the evolvers of the Tang family hurriedly made way for Yi Li and Gao Ling. After taking a few steps, Yi Li turned around and slowly said, "By the way, if you are not convinced, go back and tell your master that my name is Yi Li, the Demon King Yi Li. If you're not convinced, come to me." With that, Yi Li and Gao Ling left. Deputy Sect Master, who are you? Chapter 546. Speechless Gao Ling. Yi Li tried to communicate with the 8 zombies of the Apocalypse Legion. He found that the Apocalypse Legion was now making names everywhere in the wasteland. What he didn't expect was that after they did something earth-shattering they would say, "My master is the Demon King Yi Li." This made Yi Li a little flattered. He thought that if he went to those places in the future and said that he was the Demon King Yi Li, wouldn't those people be scared silly? Updated on B0X and Zeroville. However, the first thing he had to do was to have a good meal. Go eat. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling. Hearing Yi Li's words, Gao Ling was a little stunned. She was a foodie. How could she forget that she was hungry? She must have been full of anger because of Yi Li. Then Yi Li found a good restaurant and ordered a large table of delicacies. He ordered birds flying in the sky, geese among the clouds, cattle and sheep on land, and fresh seafood from the seas. Gao Ling, who was a foodie, was stunned. How did he order so many dishes? Could he eat them up? She was about to ask Yi Li why he was so wasteful, but before she could say anything, an even more shocking scene appeared. All the delicacies on the table were gone. Well, Gao Ling was dumbfounded. She had been shocked many times in her life, and this was definitely one of the most shocking times. She would never have thought that Yi Li could eat so much and eat so fast. Many people, when they see me eating, make the same expression as you. There's nothing I can do about it, that's just the way 1 a.m. I eat like one kill. Many people haven't even seen me make a move, and that person is already dead. Many people haven't even seen me pick up my chopsticks, and I've already finished my meal. Hearing Yi Li's words, Gao Ling couldn't help but secretly despise him. She thought to herself, why did he have to come up with such an excuse? You don't agree with me? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling indifferently. You? Gao Ling was stunned. Did Yi Li even know what she was thinking? Don't ever disagree with me, Yi Li, because nothing can escape my eyes. Yi Li slowly said. Just now, Yi Li activated the heavenly spirit eyes to pry into Gao Ling's heart. Gao Ling closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was shocked beyond words. Aren't you eating? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling. Gao Ling pouted and thought to herself, that's right. I haven't eaten yet. Then, she asked the waiter to serve some more delicious food and ordered a bottle of expensive red wine. She really knew how to enjoy life. On this night, the stars were bright and the moon was clear. The black market in the slums was really not a poor place. There were both ordinary humans and genetic warriors on the street. Deputy Sect Master, where are we going now? Gao Ling asked Yi Li. It's so late. Of course I'm going to sleep. A lazy look appeared on Yi Li's face. Then Yi Li found a hotel. What made Gao Ling collapse was that there was only one room in this hotel. Deputy Sect Master, let's go to another hotel. Gao Ling looked at Yi Li pitifully. Yi Li smiled and looked at Gao Ling indifferently. Do you think I will do anything to you? With that, Yi Li walked to the elevator. Gao Ling was hesitant and helpless, but she could only follow him. After entering the room, Yi Li lay on the bed. Gao Ling swallowed. Deputy Sect Master, where should I sleep? Yi Li didn't open his eyes. He said slowly, on the sofa, on the ground, wherever you want. Chapter 547. Is there anyone else who wants to deal with me? Gao Ling was a little stunned. She looked at Yi Li, who was lying on the bed. Aren't beds usually for girls? Yi Li still didn't open his eyes. He said casually, you're talking about a gentleman. Obviously one Yi Li am not a gentleman. After that, Yi Li fell asleep. Gao Ling was stunned. She didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Having no choice, Gao Ling could only sleep on the sofa. The next day, something big happened in the black market. Countless genetic warriors from the Tang family came to the black market to find a man and a woman. Yi Li washed up and Gao Ling got up. He looked out of the window and shook his head helplessly. He slowly said, "What a bunch of tasteless flies." "Deputy Sect Master, are they from the Tang family?" Gao Ling asked Yili tentatively. Yili smiled. "How can you ask such a simple question?" Gao Ling was secretly angry when she heard that. Since she was born, she was destined to be extraordinary in this life. But now why did she feel that she was nothing in front of Yili? Then, Gao Ling hesitated as if she had something difficult to say. A few seconds later, Gao Ling finally mustered her courage and said to Yili, "Deputy Sect Master, of course our sword sect is not afraid of a small Tang family. However, the head of the Tang family is the younger brother of Tang Lin, the sect master of the Heavenly Blade sect." Yili smiled. He knew that there was something between Gao Ling and Shi Yun of the Heavenly Blade sect. After all, they were the so-called a dragon and a phoenix in the wasteland of the Eastern Realm. "So do you think I, Yili, need to use the name of the sword sect to do things?" A wicked look appeared on Yili's handsome face. Gao Ling was stunned. She couldn't help but think of the battle in Sword City, the peerless figure standing in midair. "Let's go. Since someone is here to die, I, Yili, can only fulfill their wish," Yili slowly said. With that, Yili slowly walked out. The two of them came to the street of the black market. Not far in front of Yili and Gao Ling, there were more than a dozen genetic warriors of the Tang family. "Hey!" Yili called out to them. More than a dozen genetic warriors came back to their senses. They were all low-leveled evolved beings and were even weaker than ants in Yili's eyes. "Are you looking for a person named Yili?" Yili asked a Tier 5 evolved being. "That's right. You know his whereabouts?" The Tier 5 evolved being shouted coldly. Yili shook his head. Hee. The Tier 5 evolved being was stunned. "What are you laughing at?" "I know where Yili is," Yili said casually. "Where is he?" The Tier 5 evolved being's eyes lit up as he hurriedly asked. But Yili said slowly, word by word, "It's right in front of your eyes." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already attacked. Then, several white spiritual lights flew out, and more than a dozen genetic warriors of the Tang family fell to the ground, with a shocking bloody hole on each of their foreheads. This? The onlookers were horrified. These were genetic warriors of the Tang family. How dare they? By the way, they seemed to be the people who slaughtered the Black Axe organization yesterday. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The news about the Black Axe organization had certainly spread to the black market. There was no change in Yili's expression. "Does anyone else want to deal with me?" Boom. Without a doubt, the terrifying fist shadow hit Yili. But what happened next dumbfounded everyone present. This was because Yili didn't even retreat. They had thought that Yili would be sent flying, be seriously injured, or die. However, they never expected such a scene. Tang Shu, the third elder of the Tang family, was also shocked. His old face was full of disbelief. "That's impossible. Absolutely impossible." Tang Shu came back to his senses and shouted angrily at Yili. Chapter 549. Tang Shu kneeling and begging for mercy. Yili looked at the shock on Tang Shu's face. "As I said, you're just a frog at the bottom of a well. Why don't you believe me?" Although Gao Ling knew that Yili was very strong, she was still shocked to see this. Right. She suddenly felt that she was too stupid. Why did her memory become so poor? When she was still in the Northern Realm, she first saw Yili. As a 5th-tier transcender, she couldn't cause any damage to Yili, let alone Tang Shu, a 10th-tier evolved being. "Come here and let me kill you." Yili looked at Tang Shu indifferently. Tang Shu came back to his senses and looked at Yili coldly. "Yili, don't think you can face the entire Tang family just because you have some strength." Tang Shu said coldly. "I repeat, come here and let me kill you. Don't make me repeat myself." Yili looked at Tang Shu. Tang Shu gritted his teeth. As the third elder of the Tang family, he had never met anyone as arrogant as Yili. Attack. Following Tang Shu's order, the genetic warriors of the Tang family began to charge at Yili. Yili shook his head and looked at the genetic warriors rushing over. He really couldn't understand why these people wanted to die. Wasn't it good to be alive? Suddenly, the ancient dragon abyss sword appeared in his hand. He raised it and said indifferently, "I have a sword that can kill everyone in the world." As soon as he finished speaking, the sword fell. This sword was extremely terrifying. All the genetic warriors of the Tang family fell to the ground. They looked very different, but there was one thing common on their faces, which was that their eyes were all wide open as if they couldn't believe that they had died just like that. Silence, a deathly silence. At this moment, no one dared to speak. Their bodies were trembling because such a sword was so terrifying that their souls were trembling crazily. But Tang Shu knelt on the ground. His eyes were listless and his face was ashen. He didn't want to kneel to Yi Li, but all his strength seemed to have been drained by something and he couldn't help but kneel to Yi Li. Well. Tang Shu looked at Yi Li in shock. He began to regret it. If he could start all over again, he would rather live 10 years less than appear in front of Yi Li. Now do you admit that you are a frog in the well? Yi Li looked at Tang Shu indifferently. Aye. How could Tang Shu say anything? Answer. Yi Li shouted. Hearing Yi Li's shout, Tang Shu shivered in fright and looked at Yi Li in horror. I admit that I'm a frog at the bottom of a well. Not to mention saying some harsh words to Yi Li, even Tang Shu's voice was trembling violently. Yi Li smiled casually. Then how do you think you'll end up? Hearing this, Tang Shu couldn't help but tremble. A few seconds later he actually begged Yi Li for mercy, no longer as arrogant as before. Boo-hoo Yi Li, it's my fault. I deserve to die. I failed to recognize you. Just treat me as a fart and let me go. The onlookers were all stunned. The third elder of the Tang family was kneeling and begging for mercy. No one would believe it. This was too interesting. Chapter 550. Coming to the Tang family, the onlookers all looked at Yi Li. They all wanted to know if Yi Li would let go of Tang Shu, the third elder of the Tang family. Yi Li, let him go, Gao Ling said to Yi Li. It was fine if Yi Li killed these genetic warriors of the Tang family, but if he killed the third elder of the Tang family, the thing would be serious and the Tang family would definitely start a full-scale war. The Sword Sect was naturally not afraid of the Tang family, but the Heavenly Blade Sect behind the Tang family. One had to know that the Heavenly Blade Sect was currently much stronger than the Sword Sect. Yi Li slowly raised his finger, and white spiritual energy wrapped around his finger. Swish. As a wind-breaking voice sounded, the life of Tang Shu, the third elder of the Tang family, disappeared from this world forever. Gao Ling sighed. She knew that she was powerless to persuade Yi Li. The onlookers looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never even heard of Yi Li before, let alone seen him. Let's go. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling, who was still stunned. Gao Ling came back to herself and asked Yi Li quickly, Where are we going? The Tang family. Yi Li slowly opened his mouth. With that, Yi Li stepped forward. Gao Ling looked at Yi Li's back and suddenly made a decision. Then she jumped over and stood in front of Yi Li. Deputy Sect Master, one can't let you mess around like this. Gao Ling's face was full of determination. Someone is causing trouble for me. How can you say that one messed around? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling in confusion. Deputy Sect Master, one told you that the Tang family is backed by the Heavenly Blade Sect. Now that you've killed an elder of the Tang family, things have reached an irreversible point. Do you want to destroy the Tang family? Hearing Gao Ling's words, Yi Li instantly understood. Although what you said makes sense, do you think one Yi Li am afraid of a mere Heavenly Blade Sect? Yi Li said to Gao Ling, but, before Gao Ling finished speaking she was interrupted by Yi Li. No buts. If you don't go, I'll go. With that, Yi Li walked forward. Gao Ling pondered for a few seconds, then gritted her teeth and followed him. East Bay City Tang family. What? The third elder is dead. An old man in a Tang suit roared. Family head, that person used a sword when he killed the disciples of the Tang family. A seventh-tier evolved being said to the old man in the Tang suit. Sword? The old man narrowed his eyes. The old man in the Tang suit was called Tang Kaishan, the head of the Tang family, one of the three big families in the East Bay City. Although the Tang family was one of the three big families in the East Bay City, they were definitely stronger than the other two big families. This was because the elder brother of the head of the Tang family, Tang Kaishan, was Tang Lin, the master of the Heavenly Blade Sect. Do you mean that this was done by the Sword Sect? That's right, family head. Except for the people from the Sword Sect, who else uses a sword? Hearing this, Tang Kaishan understood everything. He had also heard recently that the dark race members and zombies outside the Sword City had all disappeared for some reason. Did the Sword Sect want to start a war by slaughtering the disciples of the Tang family? Family head, a man and a woman came. A Tier 5 evolved being came in and said to Tang Kaishan, A man and a woman? The 7th tier evolved being standing beside Tang Kaishan seemed to think of something and hurriedly asked, Is the man and woman unparalleledly handsome and the woman devastatingly beautiful? Chapter 551, I hate being threatened the most. The Tier 5 evolved being who came to report was stunned. Yes. The 7th tier evolved being felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He took 3 steps back. What's wrong? Tang Kaishan frowned. Family head, these two people are the disciples of the sword sect who injured young master and killed the third elder and many genetic warriors of the Tang family, said the seventh-tier evolved being. What? Tang Kaishan's expression turned cold. A few seconds later he said coldly, there's a road to heaven but you don't take it. There's no door to hell but you force your way in. Call everyone and follow me. Yes, family head. Deputy sect master, are you really going to do this? Gao Ling looked at Yi Li worriedly. What? Are you afraid? Yi Li looked at Gao Ling indifferently. Gao Ling said gloomily, I'm not afraid. One just don't want the sword sect to start a war with the heavenly blade sect. Yi Li didn't continue to speak because Gao Ling couldn't even tell good from bad. Did she think he was harming the sword sect? He was clearly helping the sword sect. Although the wasteland was vast, there were no powerful forces. The sword sect and the heavenly blade sect were the two most terrifying forces. There were countless small base cities and forces. However, they were still much weaker than the sword sect and the heavenly blade sect. Seeing that Yi Li didn't respond, Gao Ling regretted coming to the east base city with Yi Li. If she went back, her father would scold her to death. At this moment, the head of the Tang family, Tang Kaishan, led the people of the Tang family out, including Tang Qiu. Seeing that Yi Li had taken the initiative to deliver himself to her, Tang Qiu was extremely smug. He walked arrogantly, looking even more domineering than a barking dog. Yi Li, one didn't expect you to come to die. Tang Qiu looked at Yi Li proudly. Although Tang Qiu was a dandy, his genetic talent was terrifying. He was the real #1 genius in the East Bay City, an 8th-tier evolved being. Yi Li smiled indifferently. He felt that Tang Qiu was too cute. He actually thought that Yi Li was here to die. Who had the courage to think so? He didn't know he really didn't know. Tang Qiu stared at the smile on Yi Li's face, furious. Yi Li, this is the Tang family. Do you really think you can survive? Tang Qiu shouted angrily. Yi Li's handsome face didn't change at all. He slowly said, I hate being threatened the most in my life, but someone always does that. Tang Qiu sneered. I'm threatening you now. What can you do? Swish. With a terrifying white light, a shocking bloody hole appeared on Tang Qiu's forehead. The underworld had a new ghost, and Tang Qiu was no longer in the mortal realm. As I said, I hate being threatened the most. Yi Li said lightly. Chapter 552. Little lowly with a doll on her back, he activated the heaven-shaking sword technique. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, countless sword beams appeared in the air. Each of Yi Li's skills was a great killing skill. Now that he was a Tier 1 Chosen One, how could the people of the Tang family resist the terrifying power of a Chosen One? Ah! Ah! The people of the Tang family screamed. At this moment, only Tang Kaishan, who hadn't attacked yet, was left. Tang Kaishan was a Tier 4 Transcender, even weaker than Gao Ling, who was a 5th-tier Transcender. Tang Kaishan felt as if an evil ghost was demanding his life. His feelings were indescribable. How is this possible? Tang Kaishan's eyes widened for the largest time in history, and his body froze like a clay sculpture. Nothing is impossible. Are you ready to die? Yi Li looked at Tang Kaishan indifferently. Gao Ling swallowed. She had tried her best to think highly of Yi Li's real strength, but she didn't expect him to think too lowly. Tang Kaishan came back to his senses and looked at Yi Li. Yi Li, how dare you destroy the entire Tang family? My brother is the master of the Heavenly Blade sect. Unfortunately, Tang Kaishan never had a chance to finish speaking. A shocking bloody hole appeared on his forehead. One person, one sword. The Tang family was destroyed. Deputy Sect Master Gao Ling was too shocked. She didn't expect Yi Li to destroy the Tang family so easily. Yi Li was about to speak, but before he could, he heard the system's voice in his mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a super treasure map. Yi Li's handsome face lit up. This cheat was simply endless. Who could he reason with? Without further thought, Yi Li activated the super treasure map. Coordinates Chiha City. The coordinates of Chiha City appeared in Yi Li's mind. Yi Li looked at Gao Ling and said indifferently, Go back to the sword sect first. Deputy Sect Master, what about you? Gao Ling asked in confusion. I have something to do. Yi Li slowly said. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Li activated the swift steps and headed for Chiha City. The East Base City was still a distance away from Chihi City. After Yi Li arrived in Chihi City, he found that the city was in a mess, as if he had just experienced a great zombie tide. Roar, roar. A dozen zombies discovered him. They were all ordinary. Now that the Apocalypse Legion had all gone to make a name, he was no longer interested in synthesized zombies. A dozen zombies rushed at him crazily. In an instant, a dozen zombies melted into nothingness. Yili was really looking forward to the treasure on the super treasure map this time. He wanted to see what kind of treasure it was. He activated the heavenly spirit eyes, but unfortunately he found nothing except zombies. Boo-hoo. Chapter 553. Little lowly Yuju little girl? Yili walked over and found that this little lowly was quite good-looking. She had also become a zombie. Otherwise, when she grew up, she would definitely be a beautiful woman. The little lowly ignored Yili and was still crying. Yili was relieved. This little lowly was only a Tier 1 zombie and didn't know how to speak. And he was not interested in synthesizing a Tier 1 zombie now. Then Yili bought a zombie loyalty pill from the Point Mall. Roar. Suddenly, the little lowly pounced at Yili. Yili was stunned. He didn't expect this little lowly to play some tricks. While he was relaxed, she suddenly attacked him. Unfortunately, the little lowly was only a Tier 1 zombie. In Yili's eyes, she was pitifully weak. Yili extended a hand and grabbed the little lowly who pounced at him. The little lowly couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. Roar. The little lowly roared again and bit Yili's arm. You have 1,000 schemes, but I have one rule. Yili was immune to the corpse poison, so he was naturally not afraid of it. Then Yili forcibly pried open the little lowless mouth and fed the zombie loyalty pill to the little lowly. In an instant, the little lowly fell silent. Yili looked at the quiet little lowly and couldn't help but sigh secretly. In fact, he didn't want to raise zombies anymore, but the system insisted on giving him a super treasure map. What could he do? He checked the little lowless attributes. Little lowly, a Tier 1 zombie. Zombie attribute, defense. Zombie skill, none. Yili smiled. This little girl who looked to be 6 or 7 years old actually had defense attributes. This was interesting. A Tier 1 zombie couldn't withstand the fusion of a heaven-grade skill. Yili wanted to upgrade this little lowly before returning to the sword sect. Are there any zombies for me to synthesize? Yili shouted. Now that the Apocalypse Legion was not around, he couldn't attract the zombies over. He wanted to see if he could use his voice to attract the zombies over. Yili's voice contained some spiritual energy and spread far away. As he expected, there were really zombies coming. Roar, roar. Yili looked at the vast number of zombies, and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. Ding. The little lowly zombie has been upgraded to a 5th-tier zombie. Before long, the little girl became a 5th-tier zombie. Yili nodded in satisfaction. He looked at the little lowly, thinking that he should give her a name. Well, 111 call you Yuju. The little girl raised her head and looked at Yili in a daze. Master, is this my name? Yuju looked at Yili happily. Yuju was already a 5th-tier zombie. It was naturally too easy for her to speak. Yes. Then Yili put Yuju into the system space. There were already 10 zombies in the Apocalypse Legion. Next, it was time to return to the sword sect. If there was nothing else, Yili didn't mind continuing to upgrade Yuju, but now he couldn't. The news of him slaughtering the Tang family would definitely spread to the Heavenly Blade sect soon. Perhaps the people of the Heavenly Blade sect had already arrived at the sword sect. Then Yili activated the swift steps and disappeared. After arriving at the sword palace, Yili found that the sect master of the sword sect, Gao Feng, and the top 10 peak masters all had black faces. Deputy sect master, you're back. A peak master stared at Yili and said. A peak master was overjoyed and looked at Yili in confusion. You don't need to know that. You just need to know that the Shenyuan sword has become what it used to be. Yili slowly said. Deputy sect master, since the Shenyuan sword has recovered, please return it to the sword cave. If the Shenyuan sword is in the sword cave, the sword sect's luck might return. A peak master looked at Yili and said. Yili shook his head. The Shenyuan sword belongs to me. What does it have to do with you? As soon as he said this, Gao Feng and the 10 peak masters were all stunned. Yili, you are also from the sword sect and you are the deputy sect master. How can you say such a thing? Gao Feng looked at Yili. Chapter 555. You will see your own body. Before Yili said anything, a peak master got up from his seat angrily, stared at Yili and then shouted at Yili angrily. Yili, I'm afraid you came to the sword sect for the Shenyuan sword. Emo-shan, don't talk nonsense. Gao Feng hurriedly scolded Emo-shan. Emo-shan was the peak master of the top 10 peaks of the sword sect. He was known as the Flame Sword Master and was a Tier 1 chosen one. Sect master, haven't you seen Yili's true colors clearly? He can control zombies. Don't you know what this means? In this world, only the members of the dark race can control zombies, and Yi Li can control such high-leveled zombies. He's probably from the Dark Temple. The battle in the Sword City was just a show put on by Yi Li. Emo Shan's words were righteous and seemed to make sense. As soon as he said this, not only the other 9 peak masters, but even Gao Feng fell silent. Yi Li secretly smiled. He felt that Emo Shan's imagination was too rich. Why didn't you become a detective? Swish. Suddenly, a flame appeared and a fiery sword was pressed against Yi Li's neck. This sword was Emo Shan's blazing fire sword. Yi Li, if you don't return the Shenyuan sword to the sword cave today, I think you should know the consequences, right? Emo Shan stared at Yi Li coldly. Do you know that I hate it when others point their swords at me? Yi Li slowly said. Emo Shan sneered. Really? But I'm pointing my sword at you now. What can you do? In Emo Shan's opinion, with so many of them, Yi Li had no way out. Do you believe that I will let you see your own body? When he said this, Yi Li's face was absolutely expressionless. Emo Shan was furious. He shouted at Yi Li, Yi Li, you don't even know that you're about to die. Don't think I don't know that you're from the Dark Temple. Tell me, are you from the Dark Temple? Yi Li smiled calmly. Since you think that I, Yi Li, am from the Dark Temple, I am from the Dark Temple. That's because you're already a dead man. Hearing this, Emo Shan was furious. He was extremely angry. Emo Shan, before we figure it out, would better not jump to conclusions. Gao Feng said to Emo Shan. Sect Master, the matter is already clear, and he has already admitted that he is from the Dark Temple. After that, Emo Shan said coldly to Yi Li, I could have spared your life, but you didn't cherish such an opportunity. Goodbye, Yi Li. With that, Emo Shan was about to attack. When he was in China, Yi Li often saw a saying in martial arts novels that the best martial arts were the fastest martial arts. Yi Li had a heaven-defying level genetic talent and the second level of the ancient dragon Abyss Sword embryo, and he was a Tier 1 chosen one. In terms of speed, Emo Shan was nothing in front of Yi Li. At the moment when Emo Shan attacked, Yi Li also attacked. Of course, his speed was much faster than Emo Shan's. Emo Shan widened his eyes because Yi Li's sword had already pierced into his throat. He would never have dreamed that Yi Li's speed was so fast. I told you that you would see your own body, right? Yi Li said lightly. Otherwise they wouldn't have all waited for him with black faces. Report. Suddenly a disciple of the sword sect ran in. This disciple was about to speak, but when he saw Emo Shan's corpse on the ground, he was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He shouted and almost fell to the ground. What's the matter? Gao Feng frowned. He had a bad feeling. The sword sect disciple swallowed and said to Gao Feng, the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Blade sect is here. What? Gao Feng and the 9 peak masters were all shocked. How many people came? Gao Feng asked quickly. Chapter 557. Grand Elder of the Heavenly Blade sect. The sword sect disciple didn't dare to hide anything. He hurriedly replied, Sect Master, only one person came. Gao Feng and the 9 peak masters were all stunned. Only one person. Before Gao Feng could speak, an old man slowly walked over. The old man was shrouded in a chilling aura, with eyes like lightning, as if a single glance from him could send shivers down one's spine. Gao Feng, it's been a few years. How have you been? Yi Li looked at the old man. He was about 70 years old and was a Tier 2 chosen one. Wang Changming. Gao Feng's pale golden face began to become vigilant. Wang Changming, the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Blade sect. In the wasteland he had a famous name, which was General Treasure Broadsword. When he wielded his shiny silver coiled dragon blade, even the heavens and earth seemed to change color. The 9 peak masters also stared at Wang Changming. They naturally knew why Wang Changming was here. Gao Feng, you said a few days ago that you wanted to marry your daughter to our master's son. Why haven't you done anything about it recently? Are you going back on your word? Wang Changming said to Gao Feng. Gao Feng was stunned. He didn't expect Wang Changming to say such a thing. A few seconds later he came back to his senses and said to Wang Changming, Elder Wang, my daughter doesn't like Shi Yun, so you're going back on your word? Before Gao Feng finished speaking, Wang Changming interrupted him. Hee. Suddenly Wang Changming laughed coldly. Let's not talk about this for now. Your sword sect slaughtered the entire Tang family in East Bay City. Do you want to let it go? All the major forces in the wasteland knew that the brother of Tang Kaishan, the head of the Tang family in the East Bay City, Was Tang Lin, the head of the Heavenly Blade sect. Well, Gao Feng didn't know how to answer. How do you want to solve it? A lazy voice suddenly entered Wang Changming's ears. Wang Changming was stunned. He looked in the direction of the voice and found that it was a youth. He was a little stunned. Who are you? My name is Yi Li. This was the first time Wang Changming had heard the name Yi Li. He looked Yi Li up and down and found that Yi Li was too young, but his eyes were unforgettable. His eyes were as serene as the night and as profound as the ocean. Elder Wang, Yi Li is the deputy sect master of the sword sect, Gao Feng said. Wang Changming was stunned. He looked at Gao Feng and then at Yi Li. Ha ha. Then Wang Changming laughed out loud. Gao Feng, are you stupid? How can you let a brat be the deputy sect master? What a joke. The 9 peak masters hated Yi Li very much at this moment. They thought that if it weren't for Yi Li, they wouldn't have become enemies with the Heavenly Blade sect. Elder Wang, I hope you can watch your words. Gao Feng frowned and said unhappily. Watch my words? Your sword sect slaughtered the entire Tang family. Now you want me to watch my words? To tell you the truth, our sect master said that if your sword sect hand over the Shenyuan sword and get out of the wasteland, the Heavenly Blade sect can spare you. Otherwise, Wang Changming didn't finish his sentence, which meant that he would let Han Fei understand on his own. Although your Shenyuan sword has been sealed. Before Gao Feng could speak, Wang Changming continued. Wang Changming, don't you think your Heavenly Blade sect is too much? Gao Feng said firmly. Too much. Wang Changming sneered. This world is about strength. Chapter 558. Yi Li's arrogance. Yi Li secretly smiled. The Heavenly Blade sect didn't go too far, but Gao Feng was too sensitive. In this world, strength was everything. Without strength, who would talk to you? Just like Yi Li, just like the Tang family. The Tang family had offended him. Wasn't it too much for him to destroy the entire Tang family? Unfortunately, with strength he could do whatever he wanted. This was what the post-apocalyptic world was like. How is it, Gao Feng? Have you decided? Wang Changming looked at Gao Feng smugly. Do you know that you are now in the sword sect? Yi Li looked at Wang Changming. Wang Changming was shocked. He didn't expect Yi Li to choose this time to interrupt. Yi Li, you have no say here. Wang Changming said disdainfully. Yi Li smiled calmly. What if I tell you that 1 a.m. the one who slaughtered the entire Tang family? What? Wang Changming was shocked and quickly looked at Yi Li. He didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. What did you say? Yi Li's handsome face was very casual. He slowly said, I said one was the one who slaughtered the entire Tang family. Although Wang Changming was a tier 2 chosen one, if they really fought, there was only one outcome for Wang Changming. I didn't expect this. Wang Changming gnashed his teeth. Although the Tang family had nothing to do with him, everyone knew that the Tang family was protected by the Heavenly Blade sect. Now that something had happened to the Tang family, wasn't it slapping the face of the Heavenly Blade sect? Leave. Go back and tell your sect master that we'll deal with whatever comes our way. Yi Li slowly said to Wang Changming. Ha ha ha. Wang Changming laughed again as if he had heard the funniest joke in history. I've been wandering in the wasteland for so many years, but I've never seen such an arrogant brat. How many leopard gallbladders have you eaten? Wang Changming's tone was extremely disdainful. 10. Yi Li slowly said. As soon as he said this, Wang Changming's laughter instantly stopped. Brat, aren't you afraid of death? Wang Changming said firmly. Yi Li slowly shook his head, and a helpless look appeared on his handsome face. I gave you a chance to live. Why don't you cherish it? Yi Li shook his head. Not to mention Wang Changming, even Gao Feng and the 9 peak masters were shocked. Of course, the corpse of the Grand Peak Master Mo Shan had been taken care of, and this matter would definitely not be spread out. Wang Changming snorted. This is the territory of your sword sect. You can gang up on me. Now you know that this is the territory of the sword sect? Yi Li continued, since you know that this is the territory of the sword sect, are you convinced that it'll take your life? Wang Changming's old face was extremely cold. Since he was born he had never been threatened. Hearing Yi Li's words, for some reason, Gao Feng and the 9 peak masters felt their blood boil, as if they had returned to the domineering feeling of their youth. They didn't stop Yi Li but let him say those arrogant words. I am not convinced. Wang Changming was a little scared. He hated himself for coming to the sword sect alone. Although the sword sect couldn't compare to the Heavenly Blade sect, it was a big sect after all. Yi Li had already seen through what Wang Changming was thinking. Don't worry. I'll fight you one-on-one, Yi Li said slowly. Chapter 559. Enter the sword arena upped by BOXN0VL. Xiaomicron M. Wang Changming really didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Yi Li, you said you wanted to fight me one-on-one? Wang Changming stared at Yi Li. As the name suggested, one-on-one battles were one-on-one battles. What? You don't dare? A playful look appeared on Yi Li's handsome face. Ha ha ha. Wang Changming laughed out loud again because he found Yi Li's words too funny. Yi Li, if I were facing the entire sword sect, I would be a little afraid, but facing you? Before Wang Changming finished speaking, Yi Li interrupted him. Since you are not afraid of me, let's fight. Yi Li slowly said. In his eyes, Wang Changming was already a dead person. Wang Changming's expression turned cold. Yi Li, since you insist on courting death, don't blame me. Yi Li looked around and said indifferently, this place is too small. Let's change places. Okay. Wang Changming shouted. Then Yi Li and Wang Changming boarded the sword arena. Gao Feng and the 9 peak masters had all arrived under the sword arena. At this moment, countless disciples of the sword sect had gathered under the sword arena. Gao Ling was standing beside Gao Feng. She wasn't in the sword palace just now, so she didn't know what had happened. A trace of worry couldn't help but appear on her fair face. Father, the deputy sect master. Before Gao Ling finished speaking, Gao Feng said, don't worry, Linger. Yi Li will definitely win. Although Yi Li was a Tier 1 chosen one, Gao Feng absolutely believed that Yi Li could win. Perhaps it was because of the peerless battle outside Sword City. The disciples of the sword sect looked at each other in confusion. Who is the one going to fight the deputy sect master in the sword arena? A disciple of the sword sect who didn't know Wang Changming said. You don't even know him? He's the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Blade sect, Wang Changming. People in the wasteland call him General Treasure Broadsword. His shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword is invincible. His strength is that of a Tier 2 chosen one. What? Some disciples of the sword sect who didn't know Wang Changming gasped in fright. A Tier 2 chosen one. Isn't that the same strength as the sect master? That's right. I really don't know why the deputy sect master chose to fight Wang Changming in the sword arena. I believe the deputy sect master can win. Don't forget that the deputy sect master's strength is terrifying. Under the sword arena, the disciples of the sword sect all discussed. Yi Li, I really don't understand why you chose to commit suicide. Wang Changming stared at Yi Li and said coldly. Yi Li smiled casually because he felt that what Wang Changming said was too interesting. Do you believe that you will die a horrible death? Yi Li slowly said to Wang Changming. When Wang Changming heard this, he was furious. He didn't understand why Yi Li could still be so calm. Swish. A terrifying cold light instantly shot out of the sword arena. With a flash of cold light, the treasure broadsword was unsheathed. The shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword appeared in Wang Changming's hand. Yi Li, this knife is called shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword. One once used this knife to kill 156 high-leveled evolved beings. When Wang Changming mentioned the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword, a smug look appeared on his face, as if he was very proud of his shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword. Chapter 560. Fight Up by BOXN0VL. Xiaomicron M. The disciples of the sword sect under the sword platform were all stunned when they saw the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword in Wang Changming's hand. Is this the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword? Since Wang Changming has said so, how can it be fake? The broadsword is too cool. Yi Li looked at the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword in Wang Changming's hand indifferently. There was no fluctuation on his handsome face as he slowly said, Wang Changming, why did you take out this piece of junk? Hearing this, Wang Changming's pupils couldn't help but constrict. He dared to swear that this was the most infuriating and laughable thing he had said since he was born. Yi Li, one want your blood to be dyed on the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword. Wang Changming said coldly to Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. He pondered for a few seconds and then said, with the junk in your hand? Wang Changming couldn't suppress the anger in his heart anymore. The shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword was an absolute treasured broadsword. Everyone in the wasteland thought so, but in Yi Li's eyes, it was junk. Yi Li, show your weapon. Wang Changming stared at Yi Li. Yi Li slowly shook his head and said to Wang Changming slowly, Wang Changming, you have to know that if one show my sword, there must be blood. Yi Li, what else do you have to pretend for? Don't hesitate. Wang Changming shouted angrily. Yi Li's handsome face was calm. He thought that since Wang Changming wanted to see his weapon, he could only fulfill his wish. Swish. As a cold light attacked, a terrifying sword appeared in Yi Li's hand. The disciples of the sword sect below the arena stared at the sword in Yi Li's hand, dumbfounded. Wang Changming, did you see that? Do you still think the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword in your hand is not junk? Yi Li looked at Wang Changming indifferently. Wang Changming looked at the ancient dragon abyss sword in Yi Li's hand. He was stunned. He was really stunned. He dared to swear that the sword in Yi Li's hand was the most terrifying sword he had ever seen. This sword seemed to be able to make people feel extremely oppressed just by looking at it. Come on, show me all your abilities. Don't make me kill you in an instant. Yi Li hooked his finger at Wang Changming. Seeing this, Wang Changming was instantly furious. As an elder of the Heavenly Blade sect, no one had ever dared to provoke him like this. Under the sword arena, all the disciples of the sword sect widened their eyes, and many of them even held their breaths, because they knew that a great battle was coming. Suddenly, Wang Changming raised the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword high and shouted at Yi Li, "Netherworld Ultimate Slash." As soon as he finished speaking, the shiny silver coiling dragon broadsword fell heavily. A terrifying broadsword beam suddenly attacked Yi Li. Wang Changming was a Tier 2 chosen one. His strength was one realm higher than Yi Li's, and the skill he used was undoubtedly a heaven-grade skill. His purpose was nothing more than to kill him in one blow. Yi Li looked at such a terrifying slash. Even he had to deal with it carefully or he might really fail. But even if you have a good plan, one also have a perfect countermeasure. Heaven-shaking sword technique. Swish. On the primordial dragon abyss sword, a shocking sword light shot at the terrifying knife light, about to collide with Wang Changming. The disciples of the sword sect below the stage widened their eyes. They had never seen such a battle in their lives. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.